we? Let's call to order the meeting of the California Community Colleges Board of Governors. Today is July 16, 2018. Welcome to beautiful Sacramento, where it's cool and breezy in the morning and so hot in the afternoon. But we will all be in a windowless room here today together all day. So anyway, this is a good day. Let's call the roll. Ms. Gilmer or Ms. Castro?
Thank you. Hildegard Aguinaldo, Darius Anderson, Arnaldo Avalos.
Present.
Jeffrey Baum.
Here.
Connie Conway. Tom Epstein. Cecilia Estelano.
Here.
Jolena Grande.
Here.
Pamela Haynes.
Here.
Jennifer Perry. Mon Fawn.
Here.
Bill Rawlings.
Here.
Valerie Shaw. Alexander Walker Griffin.
Here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Ms. Grande, do you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I hope somebody warned you that's what happens when you're the newbie. Okay, thank you. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which. Okay, so we're on to the President's report. I have a number of items. First off, I want to welcome our newest member of the Board of Governors, Jolena Grande, who comes to us from Cypress College, with a terrific background and is running a really important program. And I wondered if you might say a few words about your background, Jolena, and your aspirations here on the Board of Governors.
I'd be delighted to. Thank you very much. My name is Jolena Grande. I'm a faculty member at Cypress College in the Mortuary Science program, and I've served in that role since 1995. I've had the opportunity to participate in campus, district, and state level activities, which have led me here to the Board of Governors, which I am absolutely thrilled to be here this morning. We are one of the 15 pilot programs with a baccalaureate degree in funeral service, as well as a non-credit certificate pathway from our School of Continuing Ed, which is now North Orange Continuing Ed, that paths in. So guided pathways have been a product of the Mortuary Science program and our baccalaureate degree aspirations, and now we're just thrilled to be here as a member of the Board of Governors.
Great, thank you so much. We're really excited about having your energy and experience and perspective here on the board.
Thank you.
Welcome. A couple other items. I want to recognize two members of the Chancellor's Office who are moving on. As usual, incredible talent being taken from us by other agencies and other districts. Board Member Haynes. She doesn't know. Okay. Okay. First, let me recognize Jake Knapp. Jake, come on up here. Jake Knapp is our Associate General Counsel or Deputy General Counsel, and Jake has just served wonderfully with us for the last 3 or 4 years. 3 years. Only seems like four. Yeah. I want to say, so Jake is leaving us to join the Los Rios campus, Los Rios district, and he's going to tell us a little bit about that. Actually, Jake, tell us what you're going to leave us for, and so folks can get excited for you.
District, and I'm really just an honor and a pleasure to work with you all, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've had here, and I'll still be in the system, so I'm
Great.
excited to continue working with all of you.
Well, I want to say thank you for your service. You've been terrific. You joined up as a General Counsel's office back when we had Tweed Win, and were a real leader in trying to expand employment opportunities and really help us to do faculty diversity hiring. You were a huge part of that effort, and I know you're going to bring that perspective to Los Rios at HR. But I also want to personally thank you for your service as Acting General Counsel when Tweed left us. You were terrific in advising us through a chancellor search, difficult negotiations of the chancellor's contract. No, all joking aside, you were great. You were a steady hand. You always had incredible enthusiasm about the mission of the organization, but also just a good, smart, talented lawyer, always diligent, creative, which people don't realize is an important part of lawyering. and just always professional and going that extra mile. So I want to thank you personally as somebody who's really appreciated having a terrific lawyer on board. And I know you're going to just take off and have tremendous success in your new field, and I expect to see you rise quickly through the ranks at Los Rios. So thank you, Jake, and we have a little certificate for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Great.
Come on up, Jake. Actually, come on up, Jacob Henry Knapp.
Oh my goodness.
Congratulations.
Oh, goodness.
Center
I
of the
have
seat.
I've been on this side of these before.
Okay, we got to move that. You want us to move the water?
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you so much.
But the chancellor's office.
Oh no.
Our next person I want to recognize is the executive assistant to the chancellor, Karen Gilmore, who's going to be leaving us to go to Oshpod. And Karen, I have to tell you, when I came on the board of governors, you were this steady, constant, indispensable person who always helped us kind of navigate the new and exciting world of the California community colleges. I just so appreciate, your calm, your centeredness, your wisdom. You will be greatly missed, and I know Jeff Baum wants to say a few words as a senior member.
Absolutely. Karen, where's Karen? Oh, there she is. Karen has given us the gift of time because she came to the system with Bryce Harris and to help Bryce through the transition. She was on loan from Los Rios, and we always thought that as soon as she would have the opportunity, Karen would go back to Los Rios. But no, she actually devoted herself to serving the Board of Governors and serving the state system. And Karen has been unfailingly professional and supportive and helpful throughout her tenure here, and brought a standard of professionalism to the chancellor's administration operations that has been outstanding, and we've benefited, each member of the board has benefited from that as well. And so, Karen, I wanted to say thank you for serving us, always being there, and also thank you for devoting more years than you actually promised when you started, because we were very lucky to have that, especially during the transitions through Bryce and Eloy, and to have that steady hand. And Karen's unflappable, too.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of kind of powerful emotions that happen as a appointed and elected official, and dealing in faculty as well. Karen was always steady and also cheerful in her service to the board and to the state system. So thank you very much, and I really appreciate
You guys were just so much
everything you've
fun.
done.
I couldn't leave.
Great. Karen, what are you going to do for Oshpod?
I'm going to be an operations manager at the executive level.
Wow.
So it's going to be a whole new industry for me, wonderful challenge, seems like a great organization. So I'm really looking forward to the new adventure.
Great. Well, they are so fortunate to have you, and
Thank you so much.
thank you for all that you've given to us and just always being there,
It's my
and
pleasure.
steady, calm, wise. Thank you, Karen.
You're
Please
very
come on up and let's recognize you.
This is way confidence. I don't know. I might be back. You never know.
You need to put tape here.
All right. So, couple of other items more on the agenda today. We're going to We also have on our agenda recognition of former Board of Governor members that were scheduled, item 4.6 for this month, and for a variety of scheduling reasons, we're going to table that until September when we have more former members that are able to attend. But we're really important to recognize people's service. This is a lot of work, and it's a wonderful mission, but I think people don't really get recognized for all that they put into this, and we want to make sure we thank people for their service. So, the other item that I want to note is item 2.1 in contracts and grants includes 3 grants that are associated with item 2.4. So we're going to hold those and put them together. We're going to pull that out of the consent calendar items. So with that, I'm going to turn to the Chancellor for his report.
Thank you, Board President Solano. I also want to take a little time to do several rounds of thank yous. First of all, I want to recognize and thank Governor Brown before he arrives. He'll be here later this morning, and I just want to thank him on behalf of the system for the tremendous budget that the system has and was signed into law. I also want to thank the legislature for their leadership and their support of our system. Budget process this year seemed like it lasted forever, but we were able to get to, I think, what will be a very positive outcome for our system and a significant amount of new resources for our system. I also want to recognize and welcome Board Member Grande. Welcome. Great to have you. Look forward to working with you. And as I recognize her, I also want to take a moment to recognize former board member Belansky, who served on this board for many years. He was a tremendous representative of the system, of the faculty, and we will miss his presence here at the board. I also want to take a moment to thank and recognize the statewide faculty and classified and administrative leadership. Throughout this entire budget process, we relied heavily on their input, on their counsel, on their suggestions, and I realize and recognize that many times that caused a lot of friction in our system. And so to everyone in our system, I want to say thank you for your input. I recognize that in many cases there wasn't always consensus and there wasn't always agreement. But your input and your counsel is critical to our efforts. Many may not recognize it, but both of the proposals that received the most consternation, the funding formula and the online college, were both very much changed, amended, updated, improved significantly because of this input. Particularly the funding formula saw significant changes from the time it was proposed in January to the time it was adopted in June. Those changes are a direct impact of all of the work that happened throughout the system, all of the input that was received, and every effort made to work with the Department of Finance and the legislature to incorporate those many very good and welcome suggestions and improvements. So I think we are in much better shape because our system welcomes that consultation. And so we recognize that there are concerns about the consultation process. We're going to take a tremendous amount of effort to ensure that everyone in the system understands that our consultation process does work. I think a tremendous sign of that is the great work that was just witnessed last week between our Executive Vice Chancellor of Educational Services, Laura Hope, and our new Academic Senate President, Statewide Academic Senate President, John Stankus, in the way that they communicated the recent guidance for AB 705 and math. I think that's a great example of the work that's going on behind the scenes. And I hope that I expect that work will continue and continue to grow. the very best interests of our students, our staff, and certainly our faculty. I also want to shift gears just a little bit and recognize a very important milestone that we reached last week. Many of you have heard, either at this meeting or many other meetings, the work that have been trying to accomplish with the University of California in terms of improving the transfer process. And while we recently signed an MOU with the University of California to adopt the Associate's Degree for Transfer model, I think this last week was demonstrated what is possible. We saw a record number of transfers from the California community colleges to the University of California. And I think that's a great accomplishment. And certainly a lot of work went into this, not only from the University of California and its 9 undergraduate campuses, but certainly all of our colleges have stepped up. What was interesting, what was very important to note, certainly the amount of transfers is important, but the fact that they were from over 100 community colleges is more important. And why I say that is because historically, one of the challenges that we've had is the bulk of our transfers come from a small number of community colleges. And this demonstrates that if we do a much better job of getting the word out, if all of our colleges working with the 9 UC campuses work together, we can get the word out and support those students who need to see the University of California as a potential transfer destination. So I just want to take a moment to thank everybody, certainly thank the faculty of both the University of California and the statewide academic senate who have put in a tremendous amount of time and effort to smooth out the transfer pathway. And then last but not least, I also want to recognize Jake. Jake, thank you for your service to the Chancellor's office. He's been a tremendous support to me since the day I arrived, even before the day I arrived. And certainly to Karen, who I could not have survived this year and a half, well, it's nearly 2 years since I began talking to her. I could not have survived without her, so she will be very much missed, certainly in my office. Thank you all for coming out to the meeting. Thank you all who have taken time out of your day to watch the Board of Governors meeting, and that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chancellor. Okay, let's move into our business items. Let's start with item number 1.1, which is our minutes for our May 14th. Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez, take it away.
Good morning, President Estelano, Vice President Epstein, board members, Chancellor Oakley. Item 1.1 represents the May Board of Governors meeting minutes for your approval. If you have any changes, we'd be happy to make them.
Any changes or comments on the minutes? I'll entertain a motion. Yes, go ahead. Board member
The only thing I
Rollins.
wanted to question, Adam Westman, the spelling of his name was the only thing on page 5.
Ooh, good catch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. No, it's good. That's great. Any other changes or comments or edits? All right, I'll entertain a motion. Okay, I have a motion and a second from Mr. Walker Griffin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? Oh, you'll abstain. Okay, thank you, Board Member Grande. Okay, with that, the item is approved. Okay, next up on the agenda is item 2.1. Which is approval of contracts and grants. And as I noted earlier, there are 3 items that are relating to our online initiative.
DII.
I'm sorry, DII initiative. And maybe you can call those out for us,
Yes,
Ms.
that'd be
Gonzalez.
great.
Thank you.
So item 2.1 presents the contracts and grants to the board governors for approval. The board governor's standing orders and procedures requires the Chancellor's office to receive approval before entering into a contract that is in excess of $100,000 over 3 years in duration, and in the case of consulting services, in excess of $50,000. So this month, we implemented a whole new format for you with the intent of providing you with additional clear information on the purpose of a contractor grant, the need, especially as it relates to the vision for success, and in the case of renewals, any prior accomplishments from the contracts or grants. This month, you have 2 renewal contracts, 2 renewal grants, and 9 new grants. So I'd like to focus on the brand new ones, the 9 ones. They are items 3 through 11, and items 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are the ones that are related to the DII expenditure plan. The first 3 more directly, and the other ones are also related. I'll focus on, since Executive Vice Chancellor Von Tonquillivan will review those in the expenditure plan, I'll only focus on items 8, 9, 10, and 11, which are the brand new ones and are not related to the DII item. Item 8 on page 22 approves a new fiscal agent to administer state funds appropriated for the Student Equity and Achievement Program. Item 9 on page 23 is the allocation for KFES funds. Given the additional funds in the 2018-19 state budget, we are now able to expand to 4 additional community college districts, and they are on page 23, Long Beach, Merced, Sequoias, and Victor Valley. Item 10 on page 24 are 2 WED-related items. WED has a new grant to expand the innovation of apprenticeship programs and opportunities to priority and emerging industry sectors. There are 11 grants on page 24. And then item 11 is the fiscal agent to administer said program, which is called the California Apprenticeship Initiative. That's it.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments on any of these contracts? Yes, Board Member Baum.
Well, I was going to ask, I had some questions about the item number 2, and then I do have the question about also the program on the big data, some of the data. So the question is, item 2, I understand, is run by our communication division, and our Vice Chancellor is not here right now because he's taking care of the arrangements for our guest that's coming. So I don't know if we want to table that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's hold that then.
And then the data ones, obviously, we'll be doing it with, and so, because I want to have those conversations before we vote on this as well, so that's
yeah,
the
so
question.
we will pull those.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're really talking about item 1.
8, 9,
1, 8, 9, 10,
11, 12, and 13.
Any other questions? I have questions on the same. Okay, I do have seen no other comments from board members. I want to raise a couple. On item contract number 10, so this is the apprenticeship initiative. This is the first year of that. This is so important, right? Apprenticeships are really a critical way to get people into skilled industries and kind of move them up into the middle class. And I want to make sure that we get a status on this when it comes back. The goal for the proposed term is to create new and innovative apprenticeships. So let's hear about what they are, in what fields, what happened with them, what's been the experience. I just want to make sure we get a feedback loop. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So that's all. I mean, I'm always asking you for that, but I really mean it. Okay. Okay. Likewise for 11, which is the actual reporting agency. That would be great to have them here and talk more about what they've been able to accomplish in apprenticeship training. And that. Okay, so if everybody's okay, I will entertain a motion for 1, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion
Second.
Baum and second by Board Member Haynes. Yeah, go ahead.
I will have then one question about number 8. This is just a restructuring of some of the categorical programs that we have into this.
This one is, yeah, so it's partly related to that, and it's just appropriating new funds that have been renewed.
Right, through our already established categorical programs that seek to address those issues. And then I think it's good that we're also strengthening our service to foster youth as well, too.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, so that's item 2.1. Now we have next item 2.2, a memorandum of understanding with AICCU. Vice Chancellor Hope. Executive Vice Chancellor Hope, sorry. This one's a long time coming. Really excited about this item.
Good morning, President Estolano, members of the board, Chancellor Oakley. It's my pleasure to introduce this item to you. As you know, in the Vision for Success, we've broadly outlined increases in transfer to both the CSU and the UC, but we also know that a number of our students also choose to go to private universities. And so AICCU is the Association of Independent California Colleges and Universities, and we've been working to develop an MOU that is outlined for you in the item. And specifically, I want to point out two things. One of them is that this, unlike CSU or UC, this is a MOU where participating colleges would be signing on with us individually. So the MOU that you have before you is sort of the umbrella memorandum of understanding, but each university would be signing on separately, and so that would be my role to review before any of those come back to you. And also to assure that you know that in our negotiations with AICCU, we've made sure that students who transfer to these institutions would have all the benefits of junior status without having their local degree unpacked in any way. And so to answer any questions or to help you with the decision process, I want to introduce President Kristen Soares to the podium so that she can assist me in this item.
Good morning.
Good morning, welcome.
Happy to answer questions. Excited to be here. Thank you.
Board Member Haynes.
I'm really appreciative of this MOU. It's long overdue, but I do have one specific question in terms of the language, and there's a section for articulation, and it speaks to a requirement of no more than 68 units. That's 8 units over and above what our traditional ADTs represent. And so I just want to make certain when I looked at language, it says it's kind of a bit ambiguous relative to what those units would be used for. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I think this was a lot of our discussion. As you know, many of our students who transfer to a private university, they do so because they're place-bound. Geography is one of the reasons why they may make that selection, and also because they're choosing a university that supports their values and perhaps a faith-based decision. And so those 8 additional units are specifically designed around some of the participating institutions that have faith-based requirements that public universities and colleges do not have, or service learning requirements that are connected to the mission of their specific universities. And so that's built in as the absolute maximum, and each of those participating institutions would be, as I said, signing on to us specifically. So I'll be reviewing every one of those requirements.
So, and let me tell you what sort of the basis of my concern is. We've negotiated with the CSU and with UC, and so I just want to ensure that that specificity is reflected in the regs, because right now the regs say additional campus-specific courses, but it isn't necessarily linked. I want to make certain that that language is linked in a way that it can't be just any, sort of can't be just anything.
Appreciate that.
Because when we, everyone is looking, and so therefore we just need to make certain that there's consistency and that UCs and the CSUs don't come back and say, aha, we got you now. Because at the end of the day, our students won't be served by that ambiguity. Thank you.
If I could just address that too, and it's a really important question. I want to underscore that and I really want to thank Chancellor Hope for her work on this, Executive Vice Chancellor Hope, and the entire team of the community colleges, because we really looked at this with the purpose in mind of serving students and serving community college transfer students well and improving transfer pathways for them. So those 8 additional units will absolutely be addressed in the institution participating agreement. The broad agreement was just to recognize that there are those additional units. But I will underscore, this is the ADT. Institutions who are participating are adopting fully the curriculum, and a lot of respect and appreciation goes to the faculty of the community colleges and the CSU for designing that transfer model curriculum. So biology will be biology. So there is that deep commitment to that.
Board Member Fawn.
Thank you. I want to echo the concern that Pamela Haynes addressed. I have 2, I think, minor questions. One, I don't know much about the membership of AICCU, but are your members predominantly for-profit or nonprofit?
Excellent question. All of the independent California colleges and universities are nonprofit public serving institutions, and it's approximately 80 members. Members include the private research universities, Stanford, USC. We have the faith-based colleges, the Jesuit colleges, and we have various health science law profession colleges as well. So it's a diverse membership, but all private, nonprofit.
Thank you. And my second question, probably to the Executive Vice Chancellor. Since we're trying to grow our transfer students to 4-year institutions as specified here, but I recall in our vision for success, the transfer calls out specifically UC and CSU. I know that when we looked at that, you and I had a conversation in your office. How would this then fit into the overall vision for success goals that we have, particularly goal number 1 or 2, I forgot?
Well, I think that we, as you recall, we had the conversation about the special relationship that we as a system have with the CSU and the UC, just by virtue of the fact that we are considered segments of the same system. I think the other thing that we consider to be important is the cost that students pay in order to get their education. I think, though, that this fits more broadly into the vision for success in that what we're trying to do is provide students with options, the same way we did with WGU and the HBCUs. So while it isn't addressing that goal in particular, it does address transfer more broadly and make sure that the ADT is the coin of the realm for students when they transfer. Because private options certainly are on the radar of a lot of our students. I believe that several transfer institutions are within several AICCU schools are in the top 10 of the transfer institutions that our students typically attend. So we want to make sure we're looking out for those students and make sure that when they go, that they have the benefits of starting as a junior and that they won't have that preparation unpacked.
Member Baum.
Thank you for bringing this proposal to the board. It was a few years back when, soon after we adopted the ADTs, Kristen had invited me and Eric Skinner to speak to the retreat of the CEOs of the AICCU. And the folks in the room were the USCs, the Claremonts, the Occidentals, Pepperdine's, Loyola Marymount, and others. And we always felt that our students should have a cleaner pathway to the private universities. And the private universities also have a major interest in having community colleges, students, and we wanted to kind of reduce those barriers of access. Right now, obviously, there are lots of articulation agreements that, but students would have to navigate each individual college. So I wanted to thank Kristen for her advocacy and work with Executive Vice Chancellor Hope to bring this to us, because it's great to see it finally in place. My question is, once this is adopted, do we believe that there's a pipeline right away that certain institutions, which institutions will be ready to step forward and implement it, and would it take the place of articulation agreements at between local colleges as well?
Great to see you. Thank you for the question. We have 36 schools who will be participating. So in January, when we started to discuss this, they quickly, or not quickly, but quickly and diligently reviewed the curriculum. And so 36 faculty and senates have approved the ADT. This will be the preferred pathway for those institutions. There are several articulation agreements, as you've said. Our hope is that more will continue to adopt it once they have more time. But this will be a preferred pathway, and there's going to be much outreach and communication to let students know that ADT you have, you can now take to a participating institution. So we'll be working closely with the Chancellor's office.
Thank you, because it's just so good to see we're changing the. Not only are we making things better in an administrative way, we're changing mindsets too. That people will see the community college pathway as a preferred pathway for an undergraduate education too.
Board Member Grande.
Thank you. Having this as an opportunity for our students to go beyond the UCs and the CSUs is phenomenal, especially when we're considering Section 9 on major development. Is there a particular area of focus that you believe that our 36 schools that are looking to participate initially would be interested in seeing developed?
We're not quite there yet, but what we'd like to do is come together with the faculty, the academic senate of both the community colleges and the CSU to talk about what those additional pathways could be or additional programs could be. Studio art is one program area already. There we feel we can help to improve that pathway. We have a tremendous number of programs in our sector and our institutions and working with students early on. So we want to be really part of that development and advising and creation.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board? I'll have a comment after. Chancellor, go ahead.
Kristen, thank you for your work here. The 36 AICCU institutions that are signing on, I imagine will have a chance, as these are negotiated individually, come back and make sure the board understands who all those 36 are. Clearly, some of your highest profile institutions in AICCU include USC, Stanford, Pepperdine, places where our students want to go. Will they be one of the 36?
Pepperdine is one of them, absolutely. USC and Stanford, they are not part of the original 36. USC has clearly looked at this and will continue to look at this, where they have, but very supportive, want to bring their resources. They're one of the highest receiving institutions of community college transfer students, so they're invested into community college transfer students, and so I imagine they will continue, they will look at this and be supportive of helping us just reaffirm and continue to build the transfer culture, the transfer student culture.
Well, I appreciate that. If there's anything I can do to help USC and Stanford understand the value of the California community colleges transferring to their institutions, especially since they receive so much state funding, let me know what I can do.
I appreciate that always, and your strong support. And they do appreciate the value of community college transfer students, but there's always we can do more. Thank you, Chancellor.
I have a comment and then I'll entertain a motion. So I just want to underscore that what we are approving today is, as you noted, Executive Vice Chancellor Hope, an umbrella agreement, right? And there will be individual agreements with whether it's 36 or we hope many more of the 80 members that you have, Kristen, will come back to us for our review. I want to underscore why this is so significant. We are blessed in California to have a diversity of higher education options for our students. And, we have fabulous state schools at the Cal State and the UC level, but they're large. They're very large. And the idea that we can have smaller liberal arts or faith-based institutions that can take our students and maybe in the communities in which they reside, where they're closer to their families and there's a bigger support network, is really important. We have an incredibly diverse state and with many very different cultures. And the ability to have our students have a clear pathway that's easy to navigate, that's very, very well-defined to get to these other higher education institutions is absolutely critical. So I'm so glad we have this before us. I have some clerical issues, just a few little edits, because that's what I do, and I'll get them to you, but there's nothing substantive. It's just all about trying to make it as clear as possible. With that, I think I have a motion
So move the
from Board
approval of
Member
the.
Baum. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Board Member Grande. And all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Great.
very much.
Okay, for all the lawyers in the room, this is an exciting moment. We're going to have item 2.3, standing order amendment, adding standing order 317.5. Our general counsel, Marc LaForestier, is going to review it. Yes.
President Estolano,
Yeah.
before we move on to this item, President Soares asked if she might have a photograph to commemorate your approval.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly, because there's a lot of private. Hey, yeah, I know. I see now.
But you know, a lot of
Sure. No, and so they need to start.
The exciting moment has arrived. President Estolano, Vice President Epstein, Chancellor Oakley, members of the board. This item is a proposed addition to the standing orders, and particularly for the new board members, I'll give a brief background. The procedures and standing orders of the Board of Governors address a number of subjects, including the board's operating procedures relating to its organization, officer elections, and other matters. Procedures for adopting regulations and recognizing auxiliary organizations, and then the standing orders themselves delegate board authority to the Chancellor and the members of his office to perform various functions. The standing orders concern subjects such as Chancellor's office operations, consultation, contract and grant administration, travel, and other issues. President Estolano and former member Belansky met with Jake Knapp and myself a couple of months ago to commence work on a systematic review of the standing orders for presentation to changes to Consultation Council and to this body. That work isn't complete, but we agreed at the time that there was one change that we should make immediately without waiting for the full work to be completed. In March, we gave notice of this proposed change. We've not received any comments on it, and today we ask that you adopt the resolution adding Standing Order 317.5. Standing Order 317.5 does the following things. First, it requires the Chancellor to seek board authority to participate in third-party litigation or regulatory proceedings at a regularly noticed meeting. However, when prior board approval is not practicable, the standing order would allow the Chancellor to proceed with approval of the board president on a matter of statewide significance, provided positions taken in the matter are consistent with existing board policies and positions, and participation supports community college system interests. Finally, participation must be promptly reported to the Board of Governors and to the Consultation Council. Be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'd ask for your support of the resolution.
Any questions, concerns? Yes, Board Member Haynes and Board Member Baum.
So I guess I have the question of, I realize this is coming because there could be things that have been in the past problematic, or are we anticipating something that's in the future?
Great question. So I can give you a couple of examples. In the past, the board has participated in DACA-related litigation as an amicus, supporting efforts by the UC and others to challenge the administration's actions. Tomorrow in closed session, I will be talking to you about a request from the Attorney General of California to become involved in a matter concerning the U.S. Department of Education. Had that request come 48 hours later, I would not have had time to notice it and bring it to you in closed session. So there's no specific matter that I'm concerned of at the moment, but I think given the environment, there may be several opportunities where things develop rather quickly. And I think this This authority that we're requesting on behalf of the Chancellor is paralleled by the kind of authority that exists in the legislative arena. And so we would ask that we have parallel authority here concerning legal matters.
Thank you.
And one other thing, if there were, this does not concern or provide additional authority where the Board of Governors is sued as a party. That would still have to come back to the board. So that's an important distinction to bear in mind. This will more be policy-oriented litigation or comments on regulations.
And to note, again, it has to be consistent with adopted board policy. And so in the case of the DACA work, or even some of the work on the Department of Education, we've had clear policies regarding, in the case of DACA, our openness and the importance of having safe spaces for our students who are undocumented. We passed a resolution early in the year, and so when it was time to move quickly for an amicus brief, this would give the authority of the Chancellor to do that. And as Mark notes, things are moving very quickly these days on some of these matters. We want to have the flexibility to move and file briefs when they're consistent with the positions we've all debated and taken. Board Member Baum.
Yeah, I could see the need also with the Department of Ed and NASIKI and things like that as they come up. But the one question I had about the language too is the last sentence is that the proceedings shall be reported promptly to the Board of Governors. I think I would prefer if we make that a little bit stronger, that it either be brought to the Board of Governors for review and ratification or something that would actually give us an opportunity to discuss it and weigh in on it to kind of reconfirm that this is the direction, because at times there could be a situation where maybe the board wasn't fully along, and we'd like to have a chance to course correct if necessary.
I think
reserve the right to do that.
Right. I think that authority actually is implicit in that last sentence, because it's not just a written report. It is a report at a subsequent meeting. So there would be an agenda item, and there'd be an opportunity to discuss, and accept a motion if the board wanted to go in a different direction.
So you're saying the word reporting is sufficient to say that, because I was hoping that it would be agendized, we'd have a chance to review it, and discuss it.
Right. I think because
in open session.
Right. I think because we would be reporting back to the board at a subsequent meeting, that would be a sufficient opportunity for the matter to be considered. Disagree?
It'll be brought before the board. Just makes people feel better.
Okay, that's fine.
That.
Okay.
Yeah, I had an issue with this the last time when it was brought for the first reading, and I echo very much what Jeffrey just mentioned there about the use of the word reported only. I think if there are times when the majority of the board may disagree with the board president of the action taken, that we have an opportunity to deliberate and exercise our judgment on that. So whether it be brought, however that word, I'm not an attorney, but I'm kind of particular with language too, but in my layman's term of the definition, reporting means, I just told you so, done, and no deliberation, no opportunity for consultation, if you will. So I very much echo the comment made by my colleague here. Thank you.
Fair enough.
So the issue of a kind of confirmation by the board, I want to distinguish that from the consultation council, because by definition this action would have been taken only because it's consistent with previous board policy. So it can be reported to the consultation council, but really any action that any discussion is really around the Board of Governors. So, right. So be brought before the Board of Governors and reported to the consultation council at a subsequent meeting. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
Any other questions, comments? Does that work for you, Jeff? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Entertain a motion.
Move it as amended.
Second. Great, thank you, Bill. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Saying. All right, good to go. It's approved. Thank you. Okay. Next item is item 2.4, and we're also going to be taking those contracts 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 with this item. This is the Digital Innovation and Infrastructure Expenditure Plan for the coming year. Okay, Executive Vice Chancellor, take it away. Good to see you guys.
Good morning, President Estolano, Vice President Epstein, Chancellor Oakley, and members of the board. Today we seek your approval for the 2018-19 expenditure plan for the Digital Innovations and Infrastructure Division. I am joined here by Dr. Porjanzani and Executive Director Jory Hatzel. As you know, with all expenditure plans, items that are above $100,000 come back to you in the forms of contracts and grants, such as those in items 3 to 7, which we will couple with this approval item. In the second slide, which you have, if you remember, the Vision for Success called on us to review the entire education technology portfolio. We gained input from over 300 practitioners in the field. As part of this process, we had engaged our advisory boards as part of this process, and we presented to you that work in the resulting technology roadmap that we presented to you at the last meeting. And so you see that work being reflected in the first line item for $41.9 million, which is the integrated technology categorical item, and that's an ongoing funds. In the fall of last year, we did a deep dive on the online education initiative. That represented $20 million in ongoing funds, and so that's a second line item, which Jory Hatzel had presented to you last time, in fall. And this is co-administered with Executive Vice Chancellor Laura Hope. The brand new item on here is a $35 million in one-time fund associated with the online education initiative. And this, as mentioned by the Chancellor, is reflective of the consultation and deliberations that inform the governor and the budget. And thanks to that, there is increased investment in the existing colleges, not only to do the work in order to build out the associate degrees of transfer through the $20 million, but also to be able to build out capacity, especially in the career education arena, in the $35 million. So I am joined here by my fellow panelists to just quickly overview with you the line items.
Good morning. So we presented this slide to you last time we met to showcase the roadmap for the technology for the agency. And we went through each of those items. Today we're bringing some of those that have been released or are being in the process of being released to the public for competitive bids.
So Member Baum, you had a question regarding the data science tools, which was item number 4 in the contract and grants.
I had just a question about, there was one, is that the one that had the big data kind of one? So just walk me through. Obviously, we have millions of students taking tens of millions of units and things like that. What does this mean? What are we going to be doing with the data? How are we going to be collecting it? Are we going to depend on third-party corporate? Are these big corporate contracts that are being awarded to somebody? And how's this all going to happen?
So we've been doing this research and analytics work for some time. As you may recall, we started the work on the launch board quite a few years ago, where we brought data from disparate sources. We created dashboards for workforce development. Over time, we've expanded that for adult ed, for guided pathways, and we'll continue to expand that. So we need a way to sustain that work, and additionally bring all the data that we come across, such as application data, into the same form of big data, so we can provide the analysts an opportunity to tap into that data, provide research and analytics.
And who will be doing the work, and how will it be overseen?
Yes, so we have West Ed and Ed Result. So these are the current vendors that we're currently using. So we're very familiar with these entities.
Okay, other questions? Board Member Phan.
Sorry, so I suppose you're taking items 3, 4, and 5 along with
yes.
This. I mean, items 4 and 5, or maybe items 3 and 4. Each calls for a year $20 million or above that. And I'm looking at the number of proposals that our office receives, 2. So that's $100 million for the 5-year duration and only 2 applicants. My question is our system doing enough to advertise or to inform the 114 colleges out there that, hey folks, there's $100 million over the next 5 years. Do you want to apply? And I take it that one of the 2 is already an ongoing recipient. So I'm just kind of questioning the publicity aspect of the distribution of information and the opportunity available.
So why don't I start answering that question, and then maybe I'll ask Jory to give some information. So, for example, 2 of these contracts, items number 3 and number 5, as you said, are over 20 million. So with item number 3, it's the online education initiative. So since we're not starting from scratch, the ability of the colleges and the districts to compete, it's a fairly high threshold of capacity before you can become competitive. And Jory, you can comment on that. And in number 5, the shared infrastructure, over half of those dollars actually go to the scenic, which is the acquisition of broadband for the whole system. So again, it's already a lot of existing capacity has to be built out in order to really be competitive for these contracts, as they are not brand new. Maybe you can give some highlights.
Sure. Good morning. I would just echo that sentiment that particularly with complex statewide initiatives that coming in midstream as a new applicant would present a level of complexity that, I think some districts look at that and make their decision about whether or not they have that capacity to handle it. It is pretty complex, especially in mid-implementation. And so I think that's reflective of some of what you see there.
That said, all the CEOs, the CBOs, the CIOs, I mean, all of your C-levels are noticed when these RFAs go out.
May I ask, like, since there are only 2 and we know who's the winning bid, what's the other contender? Are you at liberty to reveal that? I'm just curious.
Are you talking about number 3 or which?
Yeah, number 3 and 5, the excess of 20 million.
Yes, number 3, I believe it was Foothill competing with Butte College for that one. And then number 5, that was Foothill competing with Butte College for that one. Yes.
Yeah. Other questions, members of the board? Yes, Board Member Baum.
Hey, again, one point of clarification, number 3. So on the purpose, I'm just going to read the last sentence here. It says, by analyzing all the data aggregated by the Chancellor's Office into the CCC data lake, we will create a robust business intelligent environment, providing timely and accurate and understandable reports to CCC decision makers. So that's a valuable asset, all that data, too. And so in other circumstances, outside vendors would love to have access to our data and probably be willing to pay for that. What are we doing to ensure that data is used for our purposes and is also secure?
Do you want to?
So part of this isn't new. So we have done this kind of bringing data together and sharing it through the launch board for some time now, I think 6 years. So that work has been underway, and the security data and the access to the data has been controlled. If there is a desire by an external agency to have access to our data, they have to fill out an application. There's a group that gets together, reviews those applications, legal reviews them for memorandum of understanding signatures. So there is a process in place to provide access to anybody else outside of what's appropriate.
And will California's adopting new privacy regulations about data. How will we ensure that we're compliant with those?
So one of the grants around the technical services is
data management. Right?
Data management. Thank you. It's the orange lines that go across, and part of that is to ensure that the information security compliance across all of these different verticals of technology providers. That's for one of the exact reasons of what you're raising.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Board Member Haynes?
So I truly appreciate the role that our colleges play in pushing out these projects. It builds competencies in a way that is absolutely important, I think. But in listening to the discussion, and I realize, for example, within the body of the schematic, for example, for Butte Glen on the integrated technology and output funds, it says up to 5 years with possible yearly renewals. What gets a bit confusing is that we're talking about new funds in some of these, and yet there's sort of two issues for me. One, this is sort of the building. This is the building on an existing work that's being done, and then when it's stated that it's with possible yearly renewals, in some places that might actually be true, in that you could at one stage sort of open it up, but in open it up to new competitors. But in many of the situations, it sounds like the reality is, because of the complexity, it's more than likely that the initial contract awardee is going to be doing all 5 years. And so, I don't know how to clarify that for us. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it would be helpful to be able to do that. And I'm not certain that the language here does it. I'm just
Yes. So our standard grants and contracting process is that we have the authority to do a process, and that will hold for 5 years. And so unless there is a performance issue, upon performance issue, we can always rebid a process,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
But with short of that, then we just continue and renew. And then each year, of course, we're refining scope of work with the grantee.
If I can add to that answer, Board Member Haynes, I think it'd be good for particularly the newer board members to sort of take a step back here, because the reason we are even bringing this to you is because the Chancellor's Office is not allowed to access Prop 98 funds directly. So we wind up having to build this capacity, which should be in our office, in another district. So speaking as a former superintendent president, you know, I rarely, if ever, participated in these requests for proposals, because we essentially would have to build capacity for the Chancellor's Office, house it in our college district, get very little money for it, and then having to report to the Chancellor's Office. It is a ridiculous way of doing business, and no offense to anybody in state government, but if you think about it this way, we are hiring an entire staff to support the Chancellor's Office work. It's very difficult to then just eliminate that entire staff and go to another district and build a whole new staff. You'd essentially be closing the doors on an entire IT department in the Chancellor's Office and building a whole new one. So that's sort of the challenge that we have. And that's why I think you'll see that very few districts actually, unless they've already had that capacity, decide to enter into these opportunities. And it's something that I know Board Member Baum has for many years sort of pushed the Chancellor's Office to find more and better ways to act more like a system office. And we are working and continue to work with the Department of Finance. But it is a fundamental challenge that we will have until there is a solution for the Chancellor's Office to have access to Prop 98 funds.
So I know we have a couple other people in the queue, but there are high barriers to entry, so you're never going to get more than two. I'm surprised there was even two bidders, to be honest. So I think this is an issue. My concern is about oversight, and I wanted to ask the Chancellor, if I'm correct, are we not bringing some of these folks actually into our offices to better have oversight?
Yes, to some extent we are trying to consolidate particularly some of the leadership, and I'll ask Vaughn to give some specific details, but it is one of our, in the Chancellor's Office, one of our goals is to begin to consolidate the oversight of these very, very important, what are high-profile tech initiatives, and we have not historically been able to have a good handle on them. Sometimes things go well, sometimes things don't go as well as we would like, and that can be very disruptive to the system. But it is our intent to begin to build stronger and stronger bonds, and I'd ask Executive Vice Chancellor Ton Quinlivan to give some examples.
Yes, so we're, in reviewing the technology portfolio, we juxtapose that with what is needed in guided pathways. And so our lens was, what do we need for integration? What do we need for interoperability of these technologies? What do we need for an improved student experience? And so what you began to see was a rationalizing of some of these portfolios that we presented last time. In addition, we are also changing the way that we are managing this portfolio. For example, all of these projects have standing operations review at 9 a.m. on Thursdays. And they all hear from each other because we're trying to facilitate the integration and management of this portfolio. And there's also a lot of work being done to review the student experience across these portfolios. We've even received philanthropic support in order to begin to jumpstart some of this work. And so that's what we're looking at, and how we've redone the RFAs. And in addition, all of these RFAs have now the same terms and conditions when it comes to tightening up the standards and how we operate together, regardless of what program or project that the college or district is running. So they all have terms in terms of how they work with us, in terms of project management, in terms of enterprise architecture, in terms of information security, data management, as well as working with just how we manage collectively. So these are things that actually we drove to tighten up in the RFA process, and they're all parts of the contracts now with all of the districts.
Okay, I have Vice President Epstein followed by Board Member Anderson.
My comment kind of echoes what the Chancellor said and channels Member Baum here, because I've grown increasingly bewildered by this process, and and I see 5 contracts that appear to be quite similar, going to 3 different colleges, and I'm just wondering how much of a burden is that, and would it be better, at least if we have to contract it out, that it just went to 1? I mean, I'm curious how we ended up with 3 that all seem to have somewhat interlocking responsibilities here, and how we can, again, make this more efficient.
So we had gone through a process to look at our existing existing relationships and what are they doing well, and what needed to be done. And what we did was restructure the contractual vehicle to allow us to do more of the performance management and to rescope some of the work. Some of these RFAs are for fiscal agent contracts, so we're looking for colleges that actually have very thoughtful process in terms of being able to move funds and support us in the evaluation of contractors that are needed in order to bring the skill sets that are required to perform some of these projects.
Board Member Anderson.
Since I'm new to this and uneducated, I have a few questions. So, having looked at California, we have the obviously the largest government in the country outside of the federal government. I think that we are legendary. Caltrans, CalPERS, the Controller's Office, for basically fouling these projects up. From our standpoint, with regard to third-party review, are we using the state's CIO? I mean, who's looking at our internal process Are we using a third-party vendor? Are we using a state structure, or are we just doing it internal?
We also have auditing processes. For example, we just had an audit completed on our information security and had a very positive report there in terms of our agency's checks and balances. So there are a lot of third parties with their regular processes kicking in for our agency. In addition, we're also going to fortify a program management office to standardize how we manage all of these education technology projects moving forth. And so that's part of one of these contracts. And to Member Epstein's point, as we manage some of these fiscal agents, we may decide that it's easier to collapse and consolidate a few.
Other questions by board members? Yes, Board Member Walker Griffin. Sorry, Alex.
Thank you for the presentation. This may blend into the second one, and I do apologize if that is the case. But at least in my college and from other community colleges around the state, I've seen there's a lot of partially online classes. And I was wondering if there's any bit of money in here that would support some of those programs, because I see that there's a little bit of language talking about classes that are certificate-based. And to my understanding, some of those certificates include like auto industry or maybe even like an EMT course. So my question is there any money to help supplement some of those partially online classes for skills that you just pretty much need to do in person?
So maybe, Jory, if you could just do the next two slides and then answer that question.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll build that into the discussion. So the 20 million piece connected to the online education initiative is really ongoing funding for the initiative. As you know, you have the slide in your packet. A large chunk of that goes for infrastructure, particularly the Common Course Management System, Canvas, that's used now by all of our colleges in the system, and that's been a real critical success for the online education initiative. In this next phase, part of what the RFA called for was to actually combine a couple of projects. So to bring the California Virtual Campus, which has historically been a catalog of online courses and programs, to bring that and integrate that into the course exchange as well, and to create a student-facing portal. And one of the reasons I mentioned that is because we're looking at gap areas in programs. So for example, if you were looking at one of those certificate programs where maybe some of the courses were online but not others, then we want to give students the ability to find those other courses online elsewhere and in a really seamless way obtain those credits from institutions where they are offered online, so that the effect is a fully online certificate or ADT. So historically, the OEI has been focused on ADTs and transfer-oriented courses. It does call for fully online support, but I think address the underlying concern that I think you're raising by trying to create options for students who need those courses online to get them. And then in addition, we have funding for faculty professional development, so that we're ensuring that quality is consistent across campus and they engage in a peer review process. And then also availability of online services like tutoring, proctoring, counseling. And I think what we've learned from our experiences, but also what's come up in the online college discussion, has been the need for students to be able to access those kinds of services at a time of day, sort of on demand, outside of a traditional schedule. So that's sort of the crux of the 20 million. In addition, the one-time allocation of $35 million came through the budget and trailer bill language, specifically around some of those short-term industry valued certificates, and really, I think, creating an opportunity to move into more of a CTE type of area. And really, I think part of the overall goal is to figure out how we can provide those opportunities to students, make them easy to find, easy to access, but also to then link that back to what's happening with the 115th online college, so that there are opportunities for our colleges, the existing colleges, to participate and to create additional extended pathways for students.
Any other questions from members of the board? Okay, I'm sorry. Board Member Perry.
The Vice Chancellor mentioned there had been some foundation support for this work, and I thought it was a good opportunity for me to elaborate the role of the Community College Foundation in this effort, which I hope it's been helpful, but I know it's been helpful, actually. One of the things the foundation does, and for the new board members, the foundation exists to support the work of the Chancellor's office, and in my humble opinion, does a pretty good job of it. In this particular effort, they've been doing a lot of work to basically create a cohesive plan and to help get the word out to the colleges and promote the college's adoption of the tools that are now going to become available. And it builds on an existing partnership with the California Community Colleges Technological Center. So there's a number of efforts, and there's new foundation grants going out now that I think will continue to help support and amplify the work along these lines. So congratulations for the work you've done, and I hope the foundation's work helps you advance that work.
It does, and if I could provide an example of that. So CCC Apply is an application that all students have to complete to attend the college, and we've known for some time that we have some loss of students who start the application, never finish the application. So Foundation has been a great partner in creating funds, getting funds for us to do research on where the students are being dropped and how we can do A/B testing is called, where we take them down this path, see if they pursue that, or take them down this path, see if more of them will pursue. So we've been doing a lot of that work, and we're hoping that the new application will go live in February of 2019. Hopefully a much better application. Thanks for all your help.
Chancellor, I think you had a comment?
Yes, just to begin to close, I think several of the board members have brought up very important points here, and specifically to go back to board member Anderson's question and concern. I think it is clearly the Chancellor's office is endeavoring to stand up many very significant IT projects. The Vision for Success cannot succeed without a much more robust integration of technology, both in terms of the data, but also in terms of how we provide information to students, how we engage them in a 21st century world, how we support the online education initiative, marry that with the online college, and because of the way we're structured, we have had challenges over the decades managing IT projects. There is no question about that. That is a major concern of mine. We are hopefully hiring a new vice chancellor soon of digital innovation and infrastructure. We are in the process of doing the final reviews for that individual. Individual should come to us with some significant state experience, which, depending on your viewpoint, is either good or bad. But nonetheless, we are also continuing to work with the various advisory committees that exist within our system. But I think it is an important point for the board. We are moving forward in a significant way to improve and to create a much more robust IT infrastructure in our system. We have to. So I think it'll be an important question going forward. How are we ensuring that every state dollar spent is providing an adequate return on its investment? Because that is something, whether the state of California or any one of our systems of higher education has struggled with that. So I think it's a fair point, and I expect that we will come back with a clear idea of how we're going to oversee these projects.
Great. Okay. Are there any other comments? Not. I'll entertain a motion on actually, let's take these separately. First, let's do the innovation and infrastructure, item 2.4, and then we'll go back and do the contracting. I think that's the appropriate order. So on item 2.4, do I have a motion of any kind?
So moved.
Okay, so motion to approve by Board Member Grande. Do I have a second? Board Member Perry has seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that item has passed. Now let's go back to the contracts. We can take them individually or we can take them as a group. Any preference? Let's take them as a group, if that's okay with folks. So those would be contracts starting on page 17, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve those contracts? Vice President Epstein, do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Board Member Haynes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Thank you so much. So the offer still stands. If anybody's interested in serving on the IT committee, which is going to get appointed in the next day of the board, let me know. I've had talked to a few of you already.
I'd like to add into that.
That's great. Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Anderson. Okay. With that, let's go on to credit certificates, item 2.5. Oh, is Paul back? Okay. I'm sorry, Laura.
That's okay.
Paul, we held your contract, item 2, so we'll take it now, if that's okay? So, thank you, Vice President Epstein. Okay, so if you guys go back to the contracts, we also held on page 11, communications and marketing, that agreement. Item 11 for $5.3 million, year 3 of 5. And I know Board Member Baum had some questions, as did I. Board Member Baum, or do you want to present anything, Paul, on this?
I'm just happy to answer your questions.
Okay. Board Member Baum, go ahead.
So first off, I wanted to thank you for the detailed report that gave a much better sense of all the aspects of the program. And I've seen and heard evidence of the program as well. I heard on the radio. I think I texted you. I was at a Taylor Swift concert with my daughter, and I saw
you
admitted
a booth. To that.
And the Rose Bowl, right. And I saw the booth and the kind of like exhibit section. So I've been seeing the. So I have 2 questions and a concern. So one is that to what extent are you leveraging other social media platforms like Snapchat and Instagram, and what kind of results are you getting? Because I see the impressions that are being generated, but I don't see a lot of the actions that are resulting from the impressions. And obviously I think the objective is to try to not only expose people, but get them to then either go to a local college website or fill out a FAFSA or something like that. And then the other item of concern on page 14 and then page 16, one of the bullet points said that we've as a board have taken, and I support the position of supporting our undocumented students and supporting the renewal of the DACA program. But I was surprised to see within the ICanAffordCollege.com a bullet that was a campaign to support DACA. And I support our efforts to support DACA. I wanted to see how that fit, though, within this ICanAffordCollege.com, as well as on page 18 or 16, it says execute a year-long strategy to keep elected officials and congressional members apprised of the campaign. So, because I think those things should be done separately, not as my understanding of the funds for this are really to engage students actively in understanding that they can afford college and they can qualify. So how does it all kind of fit together?
Thank you for your question. To answer your second question and concern, the messaging around DACA students is intended to make them aware that financial aid is still available to DACA students. It's not a message of supporting the legislation in an advocacy way. It's reminding students that financial aid remains available to DACA students and other undocumented students in the community college system. There was concern among many of these students over the last year and a half or so that about their ability to access financial aid. So we decided to devote a small portion of this campaign to reinforce that message that financial aid is available to these students.
Yeah, and I support that 100%. The way it comes across in the report was 11,000 flyers were printed that say support DACA. If it was like flyers that reminded students that DACA students are eligible for public fund support,
so
which is I think
the messages that are delivered have a nexus back to financial aid.
Right. Okay. Because I think that's important to kind of keep that separate, as well as like keep targeting elected officials with these messages. What's the point behind that?
Well, we make elected officials aware of how the investment's being spent. We have a display in the Capitol that talks about the work that the I Can Afford College campaign does, and we invite lawmakers down and we discuss the activities. So it's just to kind of communicate back to elected officials what the investment is getting California.
Okay. That makes sense, because then they can actually reach out to their constituents and reinforce the message. Okay, lastly, the social media platforms, the Instagrams, the Snapchats.
Yeah, we have Instagram. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but we do use Instagram. I'm not sure about Snapchat. I believe we are using Snapchat, but I can check on that and get back to you. I should note that you know, in the past 10 years, there's been a 50% increase in the number of students who are accessing the fee waiver program, and a 50% increase in the number of students who are accessing Pell Grants. Now, the I Can Afford College campaign is not entirely responsible for that, but there are a lot of other people doing a lot of work to make these opportunities available to students. But we feel that this is having an impact on students.
Yeah, I think we should factor that into the reporting, because that is a good thing. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, please, Board Member Avalos.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. So one of the things I just want to comment is, since coming on the board 4 or 5 years ago, I've seen significant change in our communication. Originally, I know there's some concern around the digital focus that we had, and to date, it just seems so much more. So I appreciate that. Additionally, one of my major concerns was, you know, how are we doing in terms of bilingualism or outside the English language? And it's clear that we are touching that, right? So I appreciate everything you've done and your office has done to really make this more available to everyone. So I just want to give you kudos for that.
Oh, thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on this contract. This is great. Moved by Board Member Anderson. Do I have a second? Board Member Rawlings seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Great. Item passes. Thank you, Paul. Okay, back to credit certificates, item 2.5. Executive Vice Chancellor Hope.
Good morning again, President Estolano, members of the board, and Chancellor Oakley. This item is being brought for your approval as a second reading. As you may recall, Vice Chancellor Moore brought this item to you originally. She has a really good reason for not being here. She's accepting an award on our behalf from the Department of Housing and Urban Development because of our work with foster youth. So she's in Washington, D.C. today, and I'm sure she'll have more details for you later. But in her absence, I'm bringing this item forward to you. Just by way of background, you may recall that the high unit certificates were aligning with federal financial aid standards. So we're lowering that just by 2 units so that students can get financial aid. And then we're doing the low credit certificates. We're lowering that to 8 so that students who are pursuing low unit certificates can have those transcripted. So the changes to Title V are included in your packet. And if this is approved today, it would go into effect 30 days from the approval point.
I believe we have go ahead, Board Member Fond, we have a speaker on this item too.
Just a question to clarify. When you say 8 units transcripted, that means a student who is completing an 8-unit certificate, then that certificate appears on their transcript. It's notated on the transcript, because previously it wasn't the case.
Correct.
So within a 2-year period or 3-year period, a student achieves both a low unit certificate, or all 3, a low unit certificate, a high unit certificate, and an AA degree. Does that count for that student 3 completions?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, comment?
Okay. John Stancis.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi.
Good morning, President Estolano, Vice President Epstein, Chancellor Oakley, and members of the Board of Governors. I just came to let you know that the Academic Senate supported these changes in the spring of 2016 through the resolution process. This has been through the consultative process, and we are eager to see this change in Title V. And thank you very much for your work on this, Laura.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Board Member Rawlings?
Thank you. I was at the Curriculum Institute this past week, and I was at a workshop where they spent a bit of time talking about this proposal and how important it was to them to both recognize the valuable certificates that weren't 18 units, but then also dropping down into the 8 units for transcription, and how that's really going to unlock the doors for some of their stackable certificate ideas that they have, and really the way they're going to be able to outreach and give students a sense of achievement and document the achievements that students have had that we haven't been doing before. So this is great, and I'm glad to support it.
Great. All right, I'll entertain a motion. Yes, Board Member Fawn.
I move.
All right, move approval and a second by Board Member Rawlings. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? Motion is approved. We're going to take a brief 5-minute break right now, and we'll be right back. I'll give you 7 minutes. We'll be back at 10:50 if folks are okay. Thanks so much. Let's go, members of the Board of Governors. Okay.
Whistle.
Oh no, we're just going to start. Okay. Let's bring it back. The next item is item 3.1, proposed Title V revisions to the distance education regulations. Can folks in the back please be seated? Okay, folks, we're going to get a little bit of work done before our special guest arrives. Okay.
I thought they were here for this.
They were here. Of course they are, Laura. All right. All right, folks in the back. Adam Westman, please sit down. Okay, all right. Daisy's gonna. All right, item 3.1, Executive Vice Chancellor Hope, please take it away. This is an, oh wait, I think I have to, yes I do. Let me see. Item 3.1 is a first reading and public hearing for proposed regulations related to distance education in the California community colleges. The Chancellor and staff will now provide information on the item. Take it away.
Thank you again for introducing this item. I have with me Dean LeBaron Woodyard, who convenes the DTAC committee, which is recommending these changes to Title V. The DTAC committee meets regularly in order to advise the Chancellor's office about a number of issues related to distance education. And as the analysis and attachments include, you have a list of the number of committee members who contribute to this work, as well as an overview of the Title V changes. I think one of the things that you'll see from the changes is that for the most part, these are small language changes with the exception of a couple of areas. And I'll just give a real quick overview of what those are, and Dean Woodyard can provide more detail. So one of the areas that is suggested for change includes the interaction and continuous kind of deep interaction, not only between the faculty member and the student, but also among students in an online education course. I can tell you from firsthand experience, having just recently been through an accreditation visit, when ACCJC visits a college, one of the first things that the subcommittee on that particular standard will do is pull the online courses and look at the level of interaction that occurs in the course, not only with the instructor, but also within the classroom. Because obviously what we've learned in the great work that the Online Education Initiative has done is that the deeper that interaction, the more successful students are likely to be, which is why we've narrowed the gap from what was 10% difference between face-to-face courses and online courses now to just 4%. So Dean Woodyard, did you want to provide a little more detail on that?
Sure, thank you. First of all, I appreciate the opportunity to share with you some of the work that the Distance Education and Education Technology Advisory Committee has done in this area. They really have worked hard over the last year and discussing this, and as Executive Vice Chancellor Laura has indicated, the interaction and within students and between students is an important element. We do student satisfaction surveys where we look at not only interaction between the content and the instructor and the student and the instructor, between the student and the student. And then areas such as the discussion forums and the methodologies that are there, that increases the ability for students to build community. One of the reasons why students take distance education courses is because of the asynchronous nature, anytime, anywhere. But that also can build isolation. And so some of the ways that you build community so that students are aware of each other is through discussion boards and through that student-to-student interaction. So that can help improve the retention. We like to say it takes three things to improve retention: well-prepared faculty, a well-designed course, and a well-prepared student. So when you build those three things in and you get that interaction, it really can make a difference. And so with that, I can answer any other questions that you may have and look forward to answering them.
Thank you. The public hearing on item 3.1, the proposed amendments to California Code of Regulations, Title V, Sections 55200, 55202, 55204, 55206, and 55208 is now open. The purpose of the hearing is for the Board of Governors to receive comments and testimony from members of the public regarding the proposed regulations. At this time, the floor is open for comments from the public. Mr. Vice President, do we have any public comments? Who is not currently here? Okay. Are there any other members? I think we have the treasurer of the Academic Senate. Please come be seated and state your name for the record, please.
I'm Ginny May, treasurer of the Academic Senate, and this is my first board meeting. President Estelano, Chancellor Oakley, and esteemed board members. The Academic Senate has reviewed these changes and fully supports them. And the changes have also come to the Chancellor's Curriculum Committee here, and that has received full support in that group as well.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any other comments from members of the public? Yes. Please come forward.
Chairman Estelano and board members. My name is Joanna Miller, and I am the chair of the DTAC committee that referenced, and he is our wonderful advisor on this committee. Another board member, Lisa Beach, is here. I just wanted to assure the board that this was a robust discussion statewide. We created these changes over a year within our committee, but then we brought it out to the Distance Education Coordinators listserv, which is the CCC DECO organization, on which Lisa is the president and I'm a board member. And we had this conversation, and we made changes and adapted those changes before we submitted it to your board. So I wanted to assure you that this was well vetted.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any additional members of the public who would like to speak on this matter? Seeing and hearing none, this public hearing is closed. This concludes the public hearing on this matter. And there's John Stankis right on cue. Okay. Well done. Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the Board of Governors? Board Member Fahn.
Yes. I'm trying to read the whole revisions with your specifically paying attention to your underlying sentences here. Can you, if you don't mind, summarize what's the major revision to 1 or 2 points of major revision in the language that you're proposing? Because I may have a follow-up on that on 2 items that I'm looking at here. Please.
Sure. Beyond the element that we just talked about, which is the among student piece, I would say is the inclusion of the separate course approval for the DE addendum. So every course, whether it's offered, if it's offered for the first time as a new course and it's going to be a distance education course, has to go through the local curriculum committee for review as a distance ed course. Or if it's an existing course that's been taught face-to-face and is now going to be offered online, it has to go back to the curriculum committee for that regular and effective contact. So historically, some districts have created the distance education addendum that's a part of that. So what we've done with that significant piece is to introduce that within the Title V regulations so that every district would include that distance education addendum, which spells out in more specificity some of the elements related to offering the course as a distance education course.
And as a follow-up, and I'm looking at that on page 59, the regular and effective contact between the instructor and the students. Is that defined, or how is that defined, regular and effective contact?
Well, that is clearly a very broad range. The Academic Senate has published several documents on that. There's much discussion in that area. The 2 components. First of all, it needs to be regular, and that by that we're talking on a consistent basis. And the effective part is that some type of a meaningful interchange. The number one element in defining distance education versus quote unquote, and I put quote marks around, correspondence education, is that there's the interaction is lacking in correspondence education. We require the faculty to have that regular contact. It's not, distance education is not something where you just take your syllabus and put it online and never interact with the student. You have to have that interaction. In a face-to-face course, that's automatic. And I know that you've taught online, and I know that you understand this. So your ability to interact with that student is so important. Once again, that also builds that community. There's research to show the relationship between the faculty member and the student are key and paramount to developing a relation, that connectedness that can help that student stay in the course and come to the faculty member. You can have posted online office hours where the student can contact you, and you make yourself available. You can participate in the discussion groups as another way of having that regular and effective contact. As a matter of fact, the one thing that you don't want to have is a discussion group that's not moderated by faculty, because different things can happen in that type of environment, and the faculty member needs to be there to assure that civility takes place, and that there's also a certain level of learning that's going on.
Thank you for the elaboration.
Great. Any other members, questions from members of the board? Okay, that concludes our public hearing. Thank you very much, Dr. Woodyard and Executive Vice Chancellor Hope. We'll see you next time. Okay, so on to item 3.2. We have another public hearing on another Title V change. Just a moment. Okay. This is a first reading and public hearing for the proposed regulations related to referrals for supervised tutoring. The Chancellor and the staff will now provide the information on the item. Executive Vice Chancellor Hope. And you again.
We didn't leave.
Oh my goodness.
So we're very pleased to bring this item to the board. President Estolano, members of the board, and Chancellor Oakley. I can tell you this is a personal item for me, having spent 20 years in academic support services in my career. One of the things that was always particularly troubling to me is that Title V has consistently required that the only way that a college can accept apportionment for a student participating in non-credit tutoring services is if they are referred by a qualified instructor or counselor for an identified learning need. So in essence, what we had codified was the notion that students couldn't identify themselves when they needed support, and the college receive apportionment for that service. So this particular item introduces a change to Title V that would allow students essentially to self-refer and for the colleges to receive apportionment for that service. Investing in what I think see as a shift in our culture around students, and investing them with both agency and the knowledge of what it is that they need. This change is an important one in terms of not only the vision for success, but also in helping to take barriers away for students to get ample service. So we're introducing this item also as a Title V change, which is on page 65. It's a small one, but a very meaningful one. So Dean Woodyard and I are both here to answer any questions that you might have about the item.
The public hearing on item 3.2, the proposed amendments to California Code of Regulations, Title V, Section 58107, 58170, is now open. The purpose of the hearing is for the Board of Governors to receive comments and testimony from members of the public regarding the proposed regulations. At this time, the floor is open for comments from the public. Do we have any comments, Mr.
We do. Mr. Stanskus.
We missed you, John.
President Estolano, Vice President Epstein, Chancellor Oakley, and members of the Board of Governors. I'm supposed to say this every time, right?
It's okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The Academic Senate does support these changes. It is an effort, I think, as Executive Vice Chancellor Hope mentioned, to empower students. To one of the things we want to teach them is when do you need help and how do you get it to make sure you are successful. By the time an instructor or a counselor knows the student needs help, then we've already had some sort of assessment that shows an issue. And we would like students to be able to access assistance that we can provide as soon as they realize it, which is before we do. Often. So we are most welcome of these changes. That was supported by resolution of the Academic Senate at its spring plenary session as well.
Thank you. Are there any additional members of the public who would like to speak on this matter? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. This concludes the public hearing on this matter. Are there any questions by members of the Board of Governors? Okay, I think that concludes this matter. Well, I'd like to welcome the Governor of the State of California to the Board of Governors meeting. Welcome, Governor. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for your continued support of our colleges.
Yeah, I was wondering where that is.
Way down here.
Way down. Up, yeah. I like to go up in the world. Rather than down. That's good. Great. So I'm just here to listen and make comments as appropriate.
Well, the timing is perfect because the next item on our agenda is the 115th statewide online college and the report on that. So we will continue on pace. Item 4.1, information and reports, new 115th state online college. Executive Vice Chancellor Von Quinlivan.
Information.
Good morning, Governor, President Estolano, Vice President Epstein, Chancellor Oakley, and members of the board. We are here to do a briefing on the transition into the implementation phase of the 115th online college. With me, to my right, is Ajita Talwalkar-Menon, who serves as Special Advisor to the Chancellor. She comes to us after having served for 4 years as the Special Assistant to President Obama's White House for higher education policy, and prior to that served with the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Education and Labor. And then on my left, you already know our General Counsel, Mark Laforest. As was proposed in the governor's January budget, what finalized in the final budget is the $120 million in funding over 7 years, including $20 million of ongoing funds to build out the online college. This is such an important strategy to help adults, especially the 2.5 million adults who are within the ages of 24 to 35, who would otherwise potentially be stranded as the skills in the workforce change and need to upgrade their skills. In the final Budget Act, we also had a number of revisions that emphasize the integration and that alignment of the 115th college with the 114 existing colleges. And as you know, in my prior presentation to you, there was also augmentation of funds for the existing 114 colleges to build out their capacity in this area. The first year deliverables identify key milestones, which Ajita will be discussing. And so we're going to overview for you the implementation plans.
I want to begin by saying thank you to Governor Brown, President Estolano, Vice President Epstein, and Chancellor Oakley, as well as members of the Board of Governors. I wanted to start actually by sharing how heartened we've been to hear from a growing number of excited individuals, both across the community colleges and nationwide, with offers of thought leadership, technical assistance and expertise, philanthropic support, resources, and encouragement surrounding the critical importance of this undertaking. What we're doing here in California is promising and inspiring to so many who have committed their lives and work to increasing social mobility and equity, and they're eager to see us succeed in creating the kind of transformative opportunities that can upskill more Californians, upskill more Americans who are increasingly facing new pressures to adapt to a very dynamic labor market. Designing a college that Governor Brown had the vision for that is accessible, competency-based, decoupled from the academic calendar, that supports the very complex needs of working learners now and into the future, and is responsive to the changing nature of work and learning in our economy is no small feat. As we begin efforts around planning for the college, including a small team of experts that's in process to engage in advanced work, we're really thinking about what is critical to lay the necessary foundation to help operationalize the college as we search for and onboard a new chief executive officer and transition to a permanent leadership team. Accordingly, we are focused kind of fast and deep on a few first-order work streams to advance this effort. These work streams and implementation milestones will highlight the progress needed to effectively meet the statutory deadlines through the end of 2019 and are designed to advance the development and growth of the college, including initial enrollments in 3 demand-driven pathways. Mark will highlight key aspects of the work stream around planning for the legal and governance functions of the college, and I will focus my comments on providing an update on the organizational and programmatic aspects of the preparation needed to meet these key requirements and deadlines outlined in the trailer bill and that are focused on the college's operational design. One of the most, one of the most important aspects of our work to reach the focused population that Vaughn talked about, 2.5 million Californians between the ages of 25 and 34 with no college credential, is to better understand the many dimensions facing those working learners and engage them directly in creating a responsive student experience that can identify and solve for the challenges that they face. So next month, we will be launching the start of an iterative design process funded through early philanthropic support that gets us from a deeper understanding of the needs of key prospective student typologies, for example, the union healthcare worker or the parent learner, towards a very testable set of prototype experiences responsive to those student typologies. Creating this very optimal student experience will help provide the new college leadership with the knowledge, with the framework, and tested design concepts that are needed to make the critical decisions around designing effective programs for students, ranging from early onboarding of students all the way through labor market transition. And this information will be available to us before very cost-intensive decisions and operationally consequential decisions will need to be made around technology acquisition, the business model, the program offerings, staffing, facilities, and other operational activities. Through the end of November 2018, in addition to working learners, the design process will engage input from the talent that we have across the California community colleges, and will look for opportunities to engage key stakeholders that we know in the system underpin student success in the effort, including instructional and disciplinary faculty, student services faculty and staff, financial aid directors, and others. It will also bring to bear capacities that we will need with leading researchers, data scientists, technologists, workforce experts, employers, and industry to really put forward new solutions and integrate opportunities to meaningfully connect the new college to efforts with the other system campuses. So weaving in existing system-wide efforts like guided pathways, OEI, the Strong Workforce Initiative, et cetera. In addition to the design process, we're conducting early pathway planning, research, and development to support the college's early offerings. That work is actually being led by Ray Kopp on loan to us from Foothill College, where he has served as Associate VP of Instructional Research and Instructional and Institutional Research in Workforce and Career Education. I think he's in attendance today, to give him a shout out. To ensure the pathway programs are demand-driven, competency-based, focused in job areas that require scalable response, and implemented through strong partnerships with stakeholders that include networks of working adults, industry and employers, labor unions, CBOs, community-based organizations, colleges, and others. Early work on this work stream is focused on research and development activities for a program around foundational skills employers have identified as essential. That includes things like literacy, numeracy, digital skills, and what are essential employability skills, or conventionally known as soft skills. The second part of that early work involves competency mapping for technical skills around the first credentials and planning for future credentials. So the first two that have been announced include medical coding that leads to professional certification as a part of a broader healthcare business pathway, IT support as a part of a broader IT pathway, also leading to a professional certification. Efforts through the year will also include development of a research and development strategy designed to foster a culture of innovation and continuous improvement for the online college. And this is important because we want to be able to respond nimbly to new opportunities while maintaining focus, while managing risk, and in the process judiciously allocating resources from the state. Functionally, the college's R&D unit will allow leadership to identify, design, pilot, and evaluate the innovations to drive student outcomes and efficient college operations. Early work will actually help create the strategy, operating model, and implementation plan, and it will also give us early capacity to evaluate the initial pathways and ensure that we can be making iterative improvements in the program design and in the college's offerings. Early efforts to the end of the year will also include benchmarking activities and vetting of new and existing models and technologies to inform implementation. Other key aspects of early implementation highlighted are undertaking mapping the accreditation process, outlining business model development, and some of the operational planning activities that will run kind of concurrent and be informed by the student-driven design process. We're also identifying an executive search firm to launch a CEO search to conclude by December of this year. And finally, we're in the process of interviewing a number of law firms to support both the college establishment and to advise on implementation with a focus on governance in support of the board's new role. And with that, I'll turn things over to Mark to walk us through kind of key aspects of the legal planning work.
Good morning, Governor Brown, President Estolano, Vice President Epstein, and Chancellor Oakley, and members. Yes, so Assembly Bill 1809, the trailer bill, establishes the statewide online community college as a college district under the governance of the Board of Governors. The online college will be governed independently of the Chancellor's office, and we are taking the steps now to assist the online college district in assuming that independence that it's supposed to have as soon as possible. The trailer bill contemplates that the Chancellor's office will guide the formation of the online college, and those are the steps that we're starting to take. We are planning to have an organizational meeting of the online college district body, which we're going to call the Board of Trustees for purposes of distinguishing between the Board of Governors and the Board of Trustees functions. And it will consider resolutions that will authorize the Chancellor's office to engage in some of the formational administrative tasks that will be required for the Board of Trustees to approve the kinds of functions that Ajita just described. One of the most important things will be to approve a contract with a law firm that we're in the process of interviewing now, so that the firm can provide advice to the Board of Trustees independently of the Chancellor's office, and we anticipate being able to identify that firm in August. And then at the organizational meeting, we would anticipate that a number of other sort of organizational activities will be considered by the Board of Trustees, including delegating authority to the Chancellor's office and delegating authority to a subcommittee of the board and setting a schedule of meetings through to the year and beyond to make sure that there's capacity to make the kinds of decisions that need to be made in the near future. And my office will be working on preparing resolutions for consideration at that initial board meeting in collaboration with President Estolano.
before opening it up to discussion, I did want to highlight the final slide in the deck that you have, which identifies key milestones required by the enacting legislation. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this slide today, but it's included to give us a sense of what our guideposts will be over the next few years as we accelerate the college's effort to better serve students. And our early planning efforts are acutely aware of these near-term milestones as well as several reporting requirements in the legislation, and we'll be planning kind of backwards against those guideposts. The key takeaway from the legislation that I feel like is an important concluding note is this requirement that in the milestones around kind of iterative and continuous improvement that's driven by student outcomes and feedback. This is going to be a really profound learning opportunity, not just for the online college, but for the system as a whole in tackling the needs of working learners specifically. And with our early capacity, we'll be able to share more and more about what we're learning to allow the system as a whole to benefit from that knowledge base of better serving working adults, and for California to really be able to kind of lead in this arena in advancing social and mobility and equity through educational attainment that leads to labor market value. So I'll stop there, and hopefully we can answer any questions folks have at this time.
Thanks, Ajita. I think the Chancellor has a comment.
Yes, I just want to apply a translator to everything that you just heard. It was a very thorough presentation, and I want to thank everybody at the panel for walking us through and walking the board through sort of what they can expect to see. And certainly the key milestones are going to be an important part of this. I just want to clarify a few things. And a lot had happened between January and the signing of the budget. So there are different viewpoints of what is and what is not going to happen. And let me just make clear, this will be a separate and distinct community college district. Just as we recognize 72 other districts, this will be the 73rd district. It will function separate from the state agency. It will have its own autonomy, just like all the other 72 districts. The legislation assigns the Board of Governors oversight. There will be a transitional period that our General Counsel will work us through and how that will work. But it is a legal entity, a separate legal entity, separate and apart from the Chancellor's office. We do, as we begin to work through some of the initial pathways, we have clarity that we have to ensure that we support some of our biggest partners in this endeavor from day one, and that is the Service Employees International Union, who represents many of the workers that we're talking about. So we will be and continue to be actively working with them and their members to ensure that the student experience that we create has them in mind directly. And as we complete those initial commitments, we will begin to expand to other areas. The role of community college faculty will be central to the delivery, the design of curriculum, all those things that we are accustomed to seeing in all 114 colleges. Yes, this will be a competency-based education delivery model. It'll be very different because it's a micro-credential model. So we will, once we begin to establish the college, once we begin to establish the initial administration to actually get the college up, that next step will be to search out faculty for the 115th college, and those faculty will be integral to the foundational design of how this college will work. And yes, those faculty, those classified staff who are part of the 115th college will have access to a bargaining unit. How that works, exactly when that happens, certainly we will be working with our labor partners to figure that out. So we are at the initial stages of a college. We are still quite a ways away from seeing actual instruction happening, but we want to make sure that we lay a clear, robust foundation from day one so that when the founding employees of this college are here, that they have a basis from which to start from, and that we meet the goals that we've committed to, which are enrolling the first cohort of students by the end of 2019. We expect to reach that milestone.
Thank you, Chancellor. Let's open it up to questions from the Board of Governors, and then we'll take public comment. Board Member Alex Walker-Griffin.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Governor Brown, for coming. This is pretty cool. This totally beats going to the skate park. But
Anybody else?
And pretty much once this thing really gets rolling, I won't be on the board. So I just wanted to provide maybe a suggestion that the board members and the chancellor's office can work on once my time here is done. And maybe that's some sort of grant that the online community college can collaborate with other jurisdictions and other districts throughout the state through a partnership of money that can allow someone to try to rent out a laptop through the semester. I see a lot of colleges, including mine, where students can rent out a laptop throughout the year or however long they need. Since we're pretty much moving to a digital world where everything's on some sort of cloud and you can look at everything on your phone, I think that would be something that would be really perfect to have. I'm not sure how big it would be, but I think that that's something that would really help out a lot of students, especially the students that tend to live in a little bit more rural areas, Northern California and the rest of California that you typically don't hear about. That's all I have to say.
It's a great point. I think we heard that a lot in some of the early conversations that we had with students and prospective students, in particular the critical importance of device access as well as internet access. And those are very much a part of the educational costs that would go into both the instructional costs at the college and also could be covered by things like financial aid for the students in supporting access to that. So we definitely see that as a part of the effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Avalos.
So thank you for the presentation. I just want to make sure that we, as we start thinking about rolling this out, that there's tremendous interest from the philanthropic community to get around this, right? So I know that the Foundation for California Community Colleges has been involved with the Kresge Foundation, the Walmart Foundation, and the James Irvine Foundation to really start harnessing the interest that's out there. So I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that, how do we involve the philanthropic community in this process so you start building this out? Because ultimately, they're very vested and they want to move forward with this concept. So thank you very much.
I have Board Members Fawn, followed by Board Member Baum. Anyone else in queue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to recognize the many individuals over the past year who have contributed to the robust dialogue that has taken place around this particular topic, the online college, especially the participation from my fellow faculty colleagues up and down the state. While the viewpoints may have been different and at times differing, I want to applaud the professionalism that have been exhibited by the many faculty who participated in the dialogue. But now that we are embarking on a new phase, the beginning of the implementation phase, I want to call upon the same stakeholders and the constituency groups, particularly the faculty, who have come to the table to still be at the table so that we can help shape this college in the fashion that we, as a group, want it to be. Success in this new college, in my humble opinion, entails at least 3 key areas. First, the college will provide rigorous training and education to a group of students who we otherwise as a system may not have tapped into. And those training and education must be provided by competent faculty. Second, is to avoid and or minimize the duplication and therefore the competition of programs and outreach activities that are being provided and implemented by the 114 colleges currently. And third, if we can actually create a cosmos of online education, if you will, given the significant resources and attention that have been given to this new institution in such a way that the 114 colleges out there who are providing online education could benefit as well. I think if we can actively continue to be at the table and through a collegial consultation process develop this new online course, I think the students of the state of California would benefit. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Board Member. Board Member Baum, followed by Governor Brown.
I just had a couple of quick questions. One is on the governance. Ideally, the Board of Governors will serve as the initial governing board. Is that expected to transition to an independent board at some point? Number 2, the development of the initial course catalog. We have a number of great online courses offered throughout the state. Will the initial catalog maybe there's a great class at algebra class at Mount SAC. Would we look at kind of adding that class to the course catalog of the new online district? And then lastly, with a number of our chancellor's office employees essentially serving double duty because they'll be managing the state system and then this online college, not unlike when we were forced to help administer San Francisco City College, and our council's office, our deputy chancellor and others were also helping manage San Francisco, the San Francisco district for a period of time. How will we compensate our chancellor's office staff for doing that double duty in this interim period?
If I could take the last question, then I'll turn over all the other questions to Mark. We fully expect to get the Chancellor's Office out of the business of the 115th College as quickly as possible. No offense to my staff, they are tremendous, but they have a duty to the other 114 colleges that can't be compromised. So we will first creating an advanced team through philanthropic support that we have to begin to put together the infrastructure in terms of some of the things that will be needed to set up the district. But we will quickly move into the phase of hiring a staff for the 115th College. In the near term, yes, there are some functions obviously that we're doing now that overlap. The compensation will be feeling good about what we're creating today.
What happened in San Francisco? Yeah.
Member Baum, I'll handle the governance question. In an earlier iteration of the bill, it was contemplated that the Board of Governors would act only in an interim capacity and then transfer governance to another. But as the bill was signed, the Board of Governors has permanent responsibility for the online college. But one of the things that I think the board needs to consider is whether it would make sense to have a subcommittee of the board take on, be delegated the authority, and to what extent that would make sense. So I think that's going to be a conversation that we'll be having at the initial organizational meeting in August to determine how best to deal with the burden of running a separate system, separate district. And I'll turn. Did I answer your question?
The other one was on
the calendar.
The coursework.
Yeah, so I'll answer it two ways. First, I will just mention that the trailer bill language actually includes several points of connection between leveraging existing content that's been developed, including content developed through OEI. But there is a fundamental distinction in the approach that's being taken in the online college in the educational model delivery, and that is that the content will be delivered in a competency-based format, which essentially means you're thinking about a credential as a defined set of learning and skills and knowledge mastery from which the design of the curriculum and activities will be carried out against. And so I raise that because, you know, certainly there's great content and talent from the faculty. There's great resources. We will look to integrate those and also contribute to those reciprocally in a way that's reinforcing. But we are talking about a fundamentally different kind of program and credential. So it'll be, you know, we'll have to work through exactly what that looks like.
Thank you.
Governor Brown.
Good. Well, thank you. It all sounds very exciting, very, very interesting. It's an idea I've had for a number of years, and I'm glad to see we're getting closer and closer to its reality. When I listened to this, it seems in some aspects technical and rather rule or norm or procedure oriented. And I realize that in government institutions, we are very sensitive to the elaboration of careful guidelines, rules, prescriptions. So everybody's marching along in some transparent, accountable way. But I don't think we should let these very necessary housekeeping tasks, if I could refer to them as that, take away from the excitement of what we're talking about here. Yesterday I was at Caltech for a gathering of the group COSPAR. That's the World Organization for Aerospace Research. And I listened to talks from the Chinese leader talking about crack-ups in space, smash-ups of stars that create black holes, and all this activity was hundreds of millions of light years away, and they're measuring these particles, which I only barely understood. And then we heard from a Russian, and a Japanese, and a German, and an American, and this international arena in the Caltech auditorium went on for hours, and I had an opportunity to speak myself at a very different level. But when you think of this big universe and the human brain power that's going to understand at such a cosmic, galactic level, I think it's important that we at least rub our nose into that a little bit, so that as we kind of walk in our little humble shoes here, we don't lose sight of the fact that the human mind is capable of incredible imagination and creativity. And we all live, and it's very important that we live in our narrow identarian particularities. You can write that down because you're not going to hear it again.
It'll be in a minute.
Identarian particularities. That's a soft way of saying caught up in your own little world view, which is different from tens of thousands of other worldviews. So this is a big thing, and I know there's a lot of issues here, and I don't want to get into the controversy. But I do think big thinking is important. And I might say in that regard, there's always two elements I like to think of. There's rigor, but if all you have is rigor, you have paralytic death. And then you have imagination. And if all you have is imagination, you have sheer insanity. But if you can link imagination and rigor, you could have an online college that will be the envy of the world. Now, I first started thinking about this stuff back in the last few years of my second term as governor. And I came across a book, was entitled in French, Telematique, or as it was translated, Telematics. And this was a book commissioned by the French government in the 70s. And it meant to study what was the impact of the connection between computation and telecommunications. What would happen when the digital sophistication kept increasing, so that we have computerization, but then we have computerization transmitting over huge distances. So that link, some people call it communications or telematique, telematics. So I recall, I still have that book around. I like to look at things decades after I first looked at them to see what my idea is now and how much it's changed. Anyway, in this book by Nora and Mink, if you have any antiquarians around here that like to research things, the idea, they said, now in France, with this telematics, the insurance industry, the banking industry, and the post office would all merge, and the respective unions and organizations would find this quite challenging, because there would be a whole new organization and fewer employees. So this was in the 70s where this was being said. I didn't even know what that meant. How is a post office like a bank? Well, it's like a bank. Anything that can be reduced to zeros and ones and sent over a line or out into the atmosphere, or however that stuff goes. I don't quite understand how you go to your phone and you're getting signals from the Helsinki summit. I don't know how that works. But anyway, that's the world we live in. And if that messaging, which is what is the post office? It delivers messages. What's an insurance company? It keeps track of messages. What's a bank but keeping track of all this information? So when things go to digital, everything gets reduced in the same digital stream. I myself encounter this when I go so many places and they all pull out their cell phones. They say, Governor, can we have a picture? I often want to say, why do you want to commodify me and objectify me into a digital stream? Why don't you just talk to me as one human being to another? But people are not interested in talk. They're interested in a objectified package of digital units that express my picture. As you can tell, I don't like that particularly. But that's the reality. Everything is getting reduced to zeros and ones in one sophisticated form after another. So that's what this college is. That's what your banking system is. That's what so much of what's going on. So that's the technical part of it. And it's very exciting because it's opening the possibility of learning at a very intense, very broad level. And so that's what we're really talking about. And learning, you know, it's so fundamental. Learning, you know, I was talking about learning. I've got, my wife and I got a new dog that we've named Callie. It's a part poodle, which is very smart, and part border collie. So we put him out in the yard, which is fenced in. And everything was fine until the poodle learned if he puts his leg up and pulls the handle down, he could open the door and run outside. So that required, we had to put a lock so that when we let the dog stay in the enclosed area, we had to make sure that his new learning would not result in him running out and getting hit by a car on 15th and H. So I'm looking at puppy learning. I don't want to reduce what you're doing to that kind of learning, but it's all mammals love to learn, and they can't not learn as long as they're alive. In fact, being alive means to learn. So this is very exciting because it's extending. I remember a fellow named Seymour Papert who wrote the book Mindstorms, who also invented Logo as a language. Very excited about computers in schools. And he referred to the computer as my brain outside my brain. And it is an extension of our brain in some way. And so what we're doing here is creating, we use these words, pathways. Well, they used to be get a college education or become a journeyman of some kind or another. But we're struggling to find the right words for this incredibly powerful new reality that learning is at our fingertips. And we're spending hours. I spend probably, I don't know, at least 2 hours just looking at my iPhone reading. I can give you a full briefing on the Health Seeking Summit right now because I've been in touch. You know, it only stopped an hour ago. So we're learning. We have access to all manner of knowledge. And that's what's exciting because we're going to put the best minds that are around, from faculty, from teachers, from wherever we can get it, and we're going to put it into this college system. It's very exciting. Now, whenever you do that, we're stressing existing institutional arrangements. That's the nature of the beast here. And I don't like that word disruption because I think we, as an incumbent, I like steadiness. I want no disruption of my program, but I like to disrupt other people's programs. But in any event, I understand these technological changes are threatening, are anxiety-provoking, but they're coming, and they're coming in so many different ways from so many different angles. So I think it's very important that the community colleges of California be in the forefront and are creating this framework that will serve people who are not being served. And when I think of what, you know, the gap, because I did not understand a lot of what I heard yesterday, way beyond me. And my wife, who's very smart, was sitting next to me, and she didn't understand a hell of a lot either. But just sitting there for several hours, listening to what you don't understand, knowing this about the whole universe, it's important. And I want people to be able to open up their own imaginations, whether they're 15 or they're 50. People should be able to keep learning. We had this idea of lifelong learning. It's been talked about for decades. Now we have the real opportunity for people who can not only learn, they can get a certificate, they could acquire skills that will enable them to earn more money, to advance, and to pursue their dreams, whatever they may be. So this is the idea that has me excited. This is big, it's important, it's going to take a few years, and I've heard there have been some controversies. I hope there are not any more controversies, because this is a no-brainer. It is obvious, it is inevitable, it is a juggernaut that cannot be stopped. California is a leader, it will lead in this, and I say hallelujah.
Thank you, Governor Brown. I believe we have members of the public who are interested in addressing this topic.
We do. Lisa Beach and John Stanskis.
What?
Lisa, go ahead. You want to move the microphone a little closer to you, Lisa.
Is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Lisa Beach. I'm the president of the Distance Education Coordinators Organization, representing the distance education coordinators at the 114 existing community colleges. As you know, there's been a lot of conversation and some anxiety amongst the colleges, but there's also a lot of excitement that's happening around the ideas that are coming from, particularly from the R&D components of the new online college. My father was a graduate of Caltech, and I come by my nerdity honestly, and there's a lot of us amongst my colleagues who are seeing the huge amount of changes that are happening in technology related to distance education. And we're very excited to see those changes happening amongst the online college conversations, and we're looking forward to those trickling down to the 114, because we know they will come to us as well. And we're looking forward to the students in our system being able to take advantage of the new technologies through the online college. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanskis.
Good morning, Governor Brown, President Estelano, Vice President Epstein, Chancellor Oakley, and members of the Board of Governors. I'm John Stanskis. I'm the president of the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges. I have a couple things to say here regarding the 115th online college. I do want to acknowledge that the Senate was opposed to this option, but not the goals to serve students in this way. And now that it has been signed into law, the Academic Senate's opposition dies. We express the advice and judgment of all faculty in academic and professional matters in compliance with the law to provide voice to faculty expertise and service to students. And it is incumbent on the Senate to enact the law to the best of our ability to ensure academic quality and rigor, to provide pathways to higher education, and that the principles of shared governance and faculty primacy are maintained and established in this new venue. In the absence of established process, we are more than willing to fulfill that role for an online college. I hope that options such as the flexible calendar mentioned will result in revisions to the attendance accounting manual to benefit all students at all California community colleges, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments? John, can you explain a little bit?
Elaborate? What is the flexible, whatever that thing was you were talking about?
The academic calendar.
The academic calendar.
So one of the
I know the political calendar very well. I don't know about academic calendars.
So
how does that relate to this?
Right now there is an attendance accounting manual that defines how colleges can claim apportionment.
Right.
And it is based on a set calendar that has to be the same throughout the district with a set start and end date. And this is something that the Academic Senate and the faculty have questioned, why that continues to exist in this way, when some of our offerings would much better serve students if we had the ability to be more flexible in how we offer those in terms of shorter term coursework or start dates that may not align with the complete academic calendar. Those exist, my understanding, in regulation, and it has been proposed that as we move into looking at 115th college, we see how mechanisms that might benefit this 115th college would also benefit the 114 existing colleges, so that all of us are better able to serve our communities.
That sounds logical.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, to bring this to a close, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Board of Governors' identitarian particularity. We do have a role that's quite important, and as you heard from our general counsel, we are essentially the Board of Trustees of the 115th College. I had to appear at a couple of committee hearings when this was being debated and assure the members of the legislature that this board was up to the task. I talked about the diversity of this board, geographically, from expertise, professionally. I talked about the commitment of this board and the passion that this board feels for the mission of educating the people of California. I have every faith that we're going to be able to carry out this duty, but it is additional work. While the Chancellor's office is going to get out of this business as soon as possible, we will not. We are the governing board, but we will set this up as a separate Board of Trustees so that we know whenever we meet as the Board of Trustees, we're wearing that hat. We have different responsibilities, different obligations, and we have to make sure that we understand the distinction between those two roles. If you're a member of the City Council, you often will also serve as a chair of the Housing Authority or a member of the Housing Authority, or when there was redevelopment, Governor, member of the Redevelopment Authority. And so city councils often do that. They'll adjourn their city council meeting, then they'll wear the hat of the Housing Authority, or so forth. So we'll be doing some of that. But in our special meeting that I believe we have set for August 6th, which will be the organizing meeting of the Board of Trustees of the 115th College, we will go through some of the procedures, how we intend to organize ourselves, and provide some options. And I may be talking to some of you to get some advice and some counsel on how this might work best for our busy schedules, but get ready, because we're going to have to step up to the plate and really deliver for the people of California. And with that, Governor, if you have any other thoughts on this matter?
Let's get going.
We're ready.
It's going to be difficult to do it right, but everybody's help.
Thank you, Governor. Okay, with that, I want to take item 4.5 out of order, which is the spotlight on the vision of success. Executive Vice Chancellor Hope is going to talk about guided pathways implementation and put a spotlight on this particular really critical element of our vision of success.
And as I can open for Executive Vice Chancellor Hope, it seems like a long time ago, but just last year we were talking about what was then the biggest priority, which was $150 million to implement the Guided Pathways framework. So there's been a lot of work done. I want to thank Executive Vice Chancellor Hope, as well as the statewide academic senate and the many faculty and staff throughout the state who have made this a really effective implementation in a short period of time. The vision for success clearly lays out the direction that we are going. It lays out an anchor for what we want to accomplish, and it points everything back to that vision. And the Guided Pathways framework is a huge element, a very important element to achieving that vision for success. So with that, I will turn it over to Executive Vice Chancellor Hope.
Thank you, Chancellor Oakley, for that introduction. Governor Brown, President Estolano, Vice President Epstein, members of the governing board, it's a pleasure to be here to give you a little bit of an overview of the report that's actually required for us to give as part of the Guided Pathways implementation. You may recall that in July of last year, the Vision for Success was adopted by the Board of Governors, and as a result, we've been spending the last year really working hard to try to implement a number of the goals that were outlined then. And the Guided Pathways framework is an essential element of that goal implementation. So I wanted to give you an overview of the report that we'll be providing to the legislature at the end of this month, and really just kind of frame up some of the major milestones and provide an opportunity for the Board of Governors to ask questions or to follow up in any way. So these first slides are really just an overview of the vision for success, which you're all very familiar with these goals, but I think they're worth noting because in lots of ways what they represent is the North Star for the system. And in this way, we've never really had, I think in the 30 years that I've been in the community college, a North Star that we can all follow and kind of galvanize around. And in many ways, we view this as really the promise that we're making to California about how we're going to reform our system in favor of these goals to assure that students have the best possible opportunity and the best possible opportunity for success. In that way, we're really in a legacy moment as we're on the cusp of Guided Pathways implementation. And these goals represent, I think, a clarion call for action to our system. And the really good news, not to keep anybody in suspense, is that the California community colleges responded very boldly to that call to action in the Vision for Success. And all 114 community colleges have committed to the Guided Pathways framework to date. That achievement, I think, in a lot of ways is in part because we've spent the last year really focused on both awareness and education, but also really framing this not as an initiative, but as a way of thinking about how we organize ourselves and structure ourselves for student success. If we look at it as just one more innovation, then I think it's very easy for us to take a more tactical approach to reform. And really, I think what the vision calls for is an idea about thinking about ourselves as transformed or reformed in ways that are going to best support our students. So in looking at 114, what that basically means is that all 114 community colleges completed a self-assessment, completed a multi-year work plan, also attended programmatic sessions on information. And through the partnership that we have with IEPI within the Chancellor's Office, the partnership that we have with the
Can you make
statewide
sure
academic senate.
that you clarify all of these acronyms
I will,
for the
thank
sake
you.
of our layperson in the room?
Yes, sir. So within the Chancellor's Office, we have an Office of Institutional Effectiveness that's been a real partner in making sure that these awareness sessions came to fruition. And so I want to make sure that I call out Executive Vice Chancellor Teresa Tena for her partnership in this work. It's been essential. Also want to make sure that we point to our partnership with the foundation and the Center for Student Success within the foundation, who's helped us with a lot of the policy analysis and a lot of the implementation work. And then finally, our partnership with the statewide academic senate, who've been real champions and leaders for the Guided Pathways framework. And without them, we certainly would not have all 114 committing to this direction. So those are really key components to moving forward in a collaborative way. I think one of the fundamental elements of this is, as I said, we're looking at this really as more of a structural reform rather than a programmatic reform. We've spent many years as a system really trying to change ourselves programmatically, but a lot of times what we see from those programmatic reforms is just a small level of change for students or small groups of students who are affected. And often those reforms exist as islands of innovation that are disconnected from the rest of the institution. Whereas with Guided Pathways, what we're really looking for is more integration, more collaboration, a look to the entire journey of the students throughout their experience with us. And really what that requires is a cultural transformation as we think about the capacities of our students and how we organize ourselves around that work. In thinking about that transformation, it's important to note just the 4 pillars of Guided Pathways, which really this is where we see the students exist in this transformation. Guided Pathways calls upon us to design with the end in mind, and the end in mind should always be our students and their experience. So you're probably familiar with these 4 pillars, but I think what they really speak to is the ways that we're going to incorporate the student voice and the student experience in how we think about the ways that we are organized. Our set of aspirational principles evidenced in these 4 pillars are really what's driving these first steps. Many colleges are really working from that first step of creating clear curricular pathways. But I think what's been more important is for colleges to look at their data and really examine the kinds of reforms that they need to do to make sure that they are striving for more equitable outcomes and thinking more about how to include students in the thinking about everything that they do.
Executive Vice Chancellor Hope, if I may take a little prerogative, since the governor has raised these questions about how we, for lack of a better term, narrow the amount of choices that students have in pursuing programs leading toward a major. Can you reflect on how that's actually happening, how the goal of not just narrowing the choices, but narrowing the choices in a way that make it clearer and easier for a student to finish a program of study? How's the Guided Pathways framework address that?
So I think one of the things that is fundamental to Guided Pathways is this notion of relentless clarity. And when you look at a college catalog, for most colleges anyway, it's built on what's considered a cafeteria model, where the optimum amount of value is placed on choices as opposed to that relentless clarity. I can tell you from the college where I used to work, we had 5 different business degrees, and each of those business degrees had only one course difference among them, and then also had an additional ADT. And when the curriculum, an associate's degree for transfer. So essentially there were 6 business degrees available to students. And when the curriculum committee asked those questions about what are the differences among these degrees, the faculty had some challenges really distinguishing what the differences were and how we would guide students to one or the other. So I think this idea about clarity is really challenging faculty and staff and administrators to say, how can we provide clarity for the possible pathways that students might want to pursue, but also not putting such a premium on choice that what we create is something that's difficult to navigate or confusing for students to navigate. Since most of our students are first-generation students, they don't necessarily have the cultural capital or the analog of experience at home to really ask about the differences in courses and subtle distinctions within programs. So it's not that we really want to limit students' choice. We still want to, I think, inspire exploration. But at the same time, what we want to do is make sure that a student can map where they are in progress toward that goal, and that goal is clear. Does that help answer your question, sir?
Favorite phrase is choice is the enemy of commitment. That's why I took to 67 to get married. However, that is not a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think in the fundamental, if you're dealing with fundamentals, and you know what fundamental is, then you don't have an unlimited smorgasbord. That gets into vulgar detail. I mean, if you have to deal at a certain level of principle, and that's the foundation. And I do have a bias because when I went to St. Ignatius High School during the reign of Pope Pius XII, we didn't have choice. We didn't even know what choice was. We took 4 years of Latin, 4 years of English, ROTC, or ancient Greek, depending upon how smart you are. You can make 4 years of calculus. You have to take a path, a foundation, and that's part of what everybody shares. So by having all this choice, everybody has a different college education, or that's a tendency. So I think the common deposit of learning is very important. That was the common curriculum, the common, what was it, general curriculum. The general curriculum. Yeah. That was Columbia and the Crimson Book at Harvard. These were all things around the turn of the 20th century that are still being debated. But I think too many of these, because look, everybody wants to have their thing, and if choice is the principle, good, then just let everybody keep creating new courses. And if you have new courses, people will feel, well, gee, maybe I better do that. But I do think that those who learn, the faculty, I mean, those who have studied and have some degree of knowledge can say, this is what you need, this is the foundation. You better learn this. And we say that in some ways. We just seem to say it a lot less maybe than we did before. I mean, up until the left. But I think you don't need to know as many things. I think that's, if you learn the basic things, which you might call basics, very well, you get the habits of discipline, study, concentration, whatever you need. So I think too many things. And by the way, I was just thinking, you used the phrase clarion call. I used that phrase in a letter that I wrote to somebody anyway. And no one in my immediate office had ever heard the word clarion call. So that, whatever it is, and maybe that's a reflection of the lack of clarity and that you're trying to deal with. By the way, I did look on my digital access. Clarion comes from the Latin word clarus, which means clarity. So I'm very glad we're focusing on clarity. But to have a clarion call, it's like a bright flash. It's not 1,000 flashes. It is a flash. So I think in clarity, there's simplicity, there's coherence, focus. And I think the opposite is undisciplined proliferation, multiplication, and too much choice. So like everything, every good becomes a bad at some point. You know, spending is good until I say it's bad. But everything has its limit, even limits, and even goods. So that's all. But I like where you're going on the first. Clarity, good. That's big, by the way. There's not a lot of clarity in my business.
But you raise a really interesting point to the degree that these 4 pillars seem like very simple ideas, but that pursuit of clarity is actually very complex from a design perspective. And I think that's what we're going to be doing over the next few years, is working on that redesign so that students have that level of choice that's balanced against that clear goal. So thank you for that.
They don't really know what they need. And that's the point of older people being able to tell people. So they should. We'll listen to the students a little bit.
Yes.
But listen to the adults more.
Correct.
The older people particularly.
The other thing I think is worth noting with the 4 pillars is that we know that we are a diverse system with the diverse groups of communities that we all serve. And so again, we think about this as a framework because we know this is going to be applied probably in 114 different ways, depending on the community that you're looking to serve. So while those general principles stay the same, and we want to maintain fidelity to those principles, the way that they're applied and the way that they're implemented is going to vary depending on the region and depending on the college and depending on the community. The other thing that is not expressly stated as one of the 4 pillars, but it's an important point nonetheless, is that the goals for this vision for success, as well as the goal of our entire system, is to ensure that students have more equitable outcomes than we currently have. And so this idea of clarity and simplification and navigation and seamlessness and integration are all in service of assuring that more of our students complete their goals. And that is particularly true for students of low income and students of color. One of the things that we call out specifically in the Vision for Success is regional gaps, for instance, among certain areas in the Inland Empire and also in the Central Valley. And we see those areas particularly gravitating to the Guided Pathways framework because they know that that's one aspect of the way that we're going to address some of those very aggressive equity goals that we're committed to erasing. So. The other thing I wanted to point out is when you look at the way that the colleges responded to the self-assessment, so you can see that most of them are noting themselves as in early adoption phases. So about 20% of them note that they are in progress. Those are colleges who likely were part of the American Association of Community Colleges effort that started several years ago. We have a couple of colleges, Sierra, Skyline College, who worked independently on Guided Pathways. And then we have some others that are part of the California Guided Pathways project that was funded by the Gates Foundation and the Irvine Foundation and worked through our Success Center. So for the most part, most of the colleges see themselves at early adoption, which really means that they're putting a focus on the inquiry process, determining what their first steps are going to be, and starting to formulate local commitments in terms of how they're organizing themselves. The dialogue about the challenges of implementation, though, is just as important as what these results reveal. This is really the very first time we've really sent something out to 114 colleges and said, where are you in terms of your readiness to implement a major reform? So to that extent, just to even have the dialogue about readiness is something very new for our system, because this is the first time we've all 114 ever endeavored to do something together. So we see that as a really important aspect of this next step. The law also requires that the colleges complete a multi-year work plan. And here are some of the themes that came from that work plan. As you can see, most of them focus on things like, how are we going to connect to each other? What are our communication drivers going to be? How are we going to adopt language around new culture? And then some other tactical steps like establishing meta majors, thinking about program mapping, and connecting to governance. So all of these themes are again, important, but what's more important is the dialogue that took place around the development of a multi-year work plan. In the Chancellor's office, we ask colleges to create a lot of plans. And for the most part, those are tactical kind of moments for the college. It's submitted, it's accepted, it's checked off the list. What was interesting to us is that asking colleges to create those multi-year work plans, they came to us after and said, what if we decide to change what it is that we want to do? And very much like you would see a teacher in the classroom say, you changed your point of view on something? Yes, it's okay for you to do that. We said something similar. That means you're engaging fully and authentically in this work. And we expect college plans to change. We expect there's going to be an iterative process around this work. And so as a result, we've done some very close work with Executive Vice Chancellor Tan Quinlivan and Dr. Porzanjani to make sure that those plans are flexible, they're ongoing, they can be updated, and they also can tie to investments, which is a really important part for us. I'll probably spend the most amount of time talking a little bit about our support infrastructure. So one of the things that we've been thinking about is we've got this next year, and we want to focus on systemic support, regional support, and local support. Our system support is really related to policy connectivity, strategic alignment, the funding formula, simplified metrics, but we're also going to be supporting the colleges through a regional affiliation, which has really begun with the strong workforce development, so that university partners and workforce partners are also part of Guided Pathways. And then finally, local support through peer coaching, design teams, and college visits. Finally, we're really dedicated to this transformational paradigm of inquiry, design, and implementation. Any major reform is not linear. It requires that we really engage a much more recursive model, because once you go through design, that may for some reason drive you back to inquiry, and that's going to impact implementation. So you'll see that in all of our support infrastructure in terms of us valuing these three aspects of the transformational paradigm. So with that, the board can expect to see the written report at the end of this month. We'll also be providing a hearing to the legislature in August. Vice Chancellor Mattoon is arranging for that as well. And we'll be coming back to the board with regular updates. We think we're in a really good place and very excited about where we are in this investment that both the governor and the legislature have supported, which we appreciate very much.
I have a question. Just one. I have many questions, but I'm going to ask a couple. What is policy connectivity, and what is role-alike events? Now, there are many other things I could ask you, but those two just popped out. Is that connectivity among the 114 colleges? Is that policy connectivity among subject matter, like STEM or literature? What is policy? Who's being connected? What's being connected to who? That's my. And then role alike. What role alike events? I don't know what that means.
Okay.
So I know this is a simplified, but it is not clear. It is not clarion.
Let's work on that then. I'm committed to your clarity in particular. Okay. So let's make sure that we have that. So policy connectivity refers to the fact that Guided Pathways is built into a number of other legislative initiatives and in support of Guided Pathways. So for instance, AB 705, which you signed in October, which really reforms assessment and placement and basic skills instruction in California. Part of the thing that drives eligibility for Guided Pathways funding is also alignment with AB 705. AB
what's
19.
705 again? Remedial education.
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
basic skill.
Assessment, placement, and basic skills instruction. AB 19, which also provides financial support for students, is also aligned with Guided Pathways. So in order for a college to retain its eligibility for AB 19 funding, they must also be implementing Guided Pathways. So
and that's the California College Promise.
Yes, California College Promise. Thank you.
Right.
So we really see these as ways of reinforcing a movement around Guided Pathways, so that rather than it being a more disjunctive initiative, that really it's part of a larger framework of changes that we're trying to make.
Well, how much of this is top down from this city and how much is bottom up from these independent community colleges?
So the colleges...
How many people, do you have a lot of people sending out messages telling them folks what they're supposed to be doing? Or is this just occasional gatherings where you talk about things and then people pick it up and do kind of what they think is right?
I'd say it's something
I've seen
in
here a
between.
centralization, decentralization question in my mind.
So from a centralized perspective, what we're looking to do is build awareness and education around the benefits and goals of Guided Pathways. What we're really looking to do this next year as we go toward implementation is really support colleges through the process of transformation. Because there are a lot of different ways that colleges might go about implementing these various goals. So what we want to do is make sure that we are supportive of the ways that they engage the transformational process. So it is a balance. The college definitely has a role in determining the way that they apply these principles locally, and we want to support that. Also with the knowledge that there are certain outcomes that we hope to achieve that are acknowledged in the vision for success, and we want to maintain fidelity to the Guided Pathways reform.
Well, is this a new level of supervision by the Board of Governors?
Yes.
Compared to what 10 years ago, you're now reaching down and looking more intently at what these colleges are doing.
I would say, Governor, that it is a clear framework and a clear set of goals that the Board of Governors has set in motion for the system. Guided Pathways is a framework and a means to help the colleges achieve those goals. So we recognize both that the board has set an aggressive agenda, but also we need to provide the technical support to ensure that the colleges have a framework to achieve it. And then it becomes up to the local districts to figure out how to do that. But certainly since my time in the system, this has been the first time that I've seen clear system-wide goals that the Board of Governors is holding the system accountable
Well,
to.
if the goals or the commands are clear, then people are going to be either within the line or deviant. And when someone in this group's view is deviant, whatever the path is, do you send them an email? Do you shame them? Do you audit them? Do you discipline them? Do you tell the legislature on them? What? Or do you just leave it to the free play of political forces to handle these matters once you've established the truths of pathways? This is kind of the Bible here, and then the various churches will have to implement it in whatever they see. I mean, is this a Protestant model or a Catholic model?
Well, I will let Board President Stellano answer the last question. But I mean, certainly what is happening is with regard to the policy connectivity, that is the place where the Board of Governors has its most influence. So, for example, if colleges are going to gain access to the California College Promise funds that you signed into law, they have to have implemented the Guided Pathways framework. So those are some of the drivers that sort of keep people within sort of this framework. However, there are many independent colleges that sort of want to do their own thing, and we recognize that. I came from one where we sort of did our own thing sometimes. As long as they're meeting the goals, I think we are satisfied that they're going in the right direction. But, so in that regard, it is less of and maybe it's a more modern Catholic model than it was when you went through St. Ignatius. But
Anglican. It's an Anglican model.
I think you might have that.
Yeah. I get it. All right. So it's interaction. And what's a rule-alike event?
So
is this a rule-alike event?
So a role-alike event is really going to focus on people who have different functions in the college and the way that they've implemented guided pathways and giving them the opportunity to connect. So one of the things we see, for instance, is that the chief business officer, the chief instructional officer, and the chief student services officer, even within a college, don't necessarily connect on a regular basis. We want to bring those folks together with other folks who have the same role in other colleges so that they can start sharing best practices and building a community of practice around the guided pathways implementation that we are supporting.
Okay, Board Member Avalos, followed by Board Member Baum.
Thank you, Executive Vice Chancellor. A couple questions. So in your presentation, one of the things that I'd like to see is really trying to understand the definition of success, right? What are we looking to achieve by implementing this guided pathway ultimately? And I'd like to see incremental definitions of success. What are those milestones that are saying, hey, we're on the right path, right? And so to me, I know we're 20% in progress, but I think we should start, defining those parameters. And I don't know if we have or not, but I'd like to know about that.
Thank you, sir. One of the things that I think we've discovered that's a really interesting turn on your question is that the colleges who are taking a more tactical approach to implementation, in other words, seeing this as a list of tasks, while they are working toward the framework development, what we see as more promising is colleges who are really looking more deeply and more reflectively at the changes that need to take place from a cultural perspective. So even though they may have fewer things to check off the list, they actually are building probably a better foundation, both in terms of governance and identity, toward guided pathways. So part of, I think, our milestone markers is going to have to be able to measure both. But we look forward to bringing that back to you. Thank you.
Board Member Baum.
My question is, thank you for the presentation. I wholly endorse the guided pathways concept and also our entire success metrics. When are we going to start seeing dashboards that tell us where we are in this effort, as well as on a college by college basis too on implementation, so that we can answer some of the questions that the governor raised and others?
It's a really good question. One of the things that you'll see in the legislative report is a focus on 4 colleges and some of the early results that they've seen as a result of guided pathways implementation. I think those are pretty good leading indicators for the kinds of measurements that we're going to be taking. I think the other piece of that, though, is we're going to start seeing some significant shifts as we move forward in AB 705 implementation, which is why I mentioned it earlier. The changes in assessment, placement, and basic skills reform are going to make some meaningful differences in terms of our students having access to transfer level courses, as well as, I think, shorter time toward goal. Those kinds of things are fundamental to guided pathways, and we'll be able to measure that pretty readily very soon.
Right. So will you be bringing to the board dashboards so that we can assess as a board the progress on these? And when do we think that we might see those?
So one of the things that we're also working on, so my office and Dr. Porzanjani's office are working on a dashboard of indicators within the NOVA system that measures not only investments, but also the outputs from those investments. And as soon as we're able to provide something to you, we'd be happy to share that with the board at your request.
We're going to take one more question. I do want to introduce Christopher Cabalden, who's the mayor of City of West Sacramento, who's sitting in our audience and has joined us as well. All right, Vice President Epstein,
Yeah, just a quick question. You recall that I was very interested in the number of units that people take on average in order to finish a 2-year degree that was at 87. And it seems to me like as that number goes down, that's a definite demonstration of success of guided pathways. Have you seen, among the 30 that have started, have you seen any progress on that measure?
We've seen progress on that measure and one other interesting measure, which is a change in the number of the units that students carry. So some of the colleges have reported that as they move toward the guided pathways framework, they're reducing that number of overall credits that students take, but also that more students are striving to take 15 units rather than 12.
Right.
And so both of those things work together, obviously, to help students get to their goal.
Okay, I know we have one public comment, but before we do that, I do want to say ultimately the metric that matters the most are these 5 goals.
Yes.
And that's our 6 goals, sorry. That's what we're going to be hearing back on a repeated basis. This is all about trying to hit the mark on degrees and certificates and narrowing the equity gap and making sure that students take fewer units, that are not wasting their time. It's about getting them the education they need and getting to the completions and just challenging that equity gap. So I'm a firm believer in not having too many dashboards, and I think if we can keep it to those 6 that we've set forth in our Vision for Success, we'll be in great shape. And we think guided pathways is one framework to get you there, but at the end of the day, the boards of trustees that govern those individual districts, it's up to them to achieve these six goals. So Vice President Epstein, who has a card in?
Alejandra Lomelli.
Good morning, or good afternoon now. My name is Alejandro Lomelli with the Student Senate. I'd like to just give a couple comments on the idea of guided pathways again. We've been talking about guided pathways for over a year now. And some exciting news that I just heard today was that all 114 community colleges are on board.
Yeah.
That's exciting here from our end. We've heard concerns from students across the state about the ability of a student to move from one institution to the other. So the fact that all statewide colleges are on board for this provides some clarity, as we provided earlier. But also, I just personally see some irony in guided pathways not working within our own institutions. Some things that we highlighted that were exciting to us are plans being flexible, ongoing, tied to investment, and most recently looking internally at cultural impact. I think that's huge. And as long as this process goes, we're excited to see how these success metrics will come to be and how these awards that were noted earlier will be given out to those colleges. And just to an earlier comment that was made by Governor Brown here, as a student, I'd just like to say that, what did I know here? Oh, we talk about the perspectives of key stakeholders and expertise, and as much as I appreciate the comment of older folks, I would just like to notoriously plug in that we hope we tap into the expertise of our students across the state as well. Hopefully the priority, but we'll have that discussion later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Well, it's true. You have more older students in community college.
We do, yeah.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, we're going to break for lunch.
I want to say one more thing. I just have to share an experience. I dealt with the Secretary of Education around the race to the top. That was a multi-billion-dollar effort by the Obama administration, and California didn't participate as a state for reasons I didn't think too much of the whole idea of the program. And basically, I thought that our own faculties and schools and superintendents could handle it, and we didn't need a lot of guidance from Washington. Anyway, we had a lot of back and forth in the approval of plans, because you have to submit things in order to get your federal education. And so there's a lot of going back and forth, and this race to the top, most of the states were in some way disapproved. And they all had to appeal, and by the time they appealed, Obama was gone. So that's the way they worked through race to the top. They slowed it down, and they raced where they were going anyway. But when I went back to see the secretary, and I don't know if you've ever been back to education, it's a very long hall, really huge. And I walked down that hall, because the secretary's at the end, kind of like you're at the end of the business here. But anyway, down the end of that hall, and they had open doors. And I looked to the left, and I looked to the right. I saw these young, they look young, everybody's young now. There are these young people sitting at their computer, typing away. I thought, aha, that's the way it works. We have 3 million teachers, and we have 60 million kids. And this group of people is managing all 3 million teachers, and they're doing it by sending out emails back and forth, and the states are sending their emails asking for appeals or exceptions, presenting their plans. So it's this constant digital chatter that goes from professional teachers who are in a classroom who know what the hell they're doing, supervised by principals who are right there in the same building, all being reduced to zeros and ones in this digital stream, going back to this huge building full of young people telling them what to do. So from that idea, I get we want to bring decision making to where it really is, and where it really is the teacher in the classroom is the central engine of all activity. But of course, we can't be in the classroom, so we want to do a lot ourselves. But we have to remember it's all there in the classroom, or maybe it'll be online to some degree, great degree. But the further away you get, the more abstract, the more distant, the less human, less fleshy the whole experience. Put that as a caution, and that's why I invoke the doctrine of subsidiarity. Right. We are very subsidiary. That's the idea. The essential, primary, fundamental teacher. First student, then mommy and daddy, and then teacher, then principal, then superintendent, then school board. Then when you get to the top, you get to the state agencies. That's what we are. So we're at the end of the line, very subservient and subsidiary. What's the adjective? Subsidiary.
Subsidiarily.
I don't know, whatever the hell it is. It's all about allocating responsibilities. There is a real role, for governors, for your governors, but we have to write. It's not the same role as the active person who's going to make the difference, and whether a man or woman is going to learn what we want them to learn or what they want to learn. That's all.
Well, I want to thank Governor Brown for spending some time with us and letting us share with you what we're working on. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Governor. Okay, and Chancellor, did you want to make one more announcement?
Yeah, just 2 quick things. One, I want to make sure and take a moment to recognize and welcome David Longnecker, who is the previous president of the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education and the current interim. He's had a lot to do with where we're at, his work for many, 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 many years. Well, not that many, I suppose, David. So thank you for being here, David. And then the final thought I'd want to say, and because you weren't here earlier, Governor, we talked about the record number of transfers to the University of California. And I have to publicly say that without the governor's intervention and interest in transfer, we would not be celebrating this significant increase in transfers. So thank you, Governor.
All right. With that, we're going to break and go into closed session. We'll be back at 1:15. Thank you. Oh, just lunch. Okay. We're going to take a 45-minute break. Thank you.